Okay, yes, I had to take off the music that I had on here originally. The reason being was, for some strange reason, it had a copyright ID. Not a copyright strike, but one of those ID matches. So I don't know. I give up on those things. People haven't been sending me like free music, but I haven't taken advantage of it yet because I was saving it for other things, but I might just throw it on there. I don't see my meets on here, though. Make sure they can hear you. Can they hear you, Heather? Talk to me. Oh,
Hey.
I can.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Quite loud. Let me make sure the outside can. You guys hear her? Karma Valley. If you haven't checked out her channel, link in the video description. She does some pretty cool videos with Claire that I watched yesterday too. So
thank you.
The music is getting better. Yeah, the music doesn't exist. I know it's nice and quiet, right? So let me make sure that the audio is good before we get started, and we'll kind of give you an overview of what we're going to be doing here. But basically, we want to test arguments out. That's what I want to do. And as you guys know, I write a blog, 3 AM Philosophy, which is just a lay atheist, not a lay thing for mostly atheists to come look at and try to be better at their argumentation, but it's for anybody. And, I had this 3-parter. I just kind of been boom, 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 like almost 3 days in a row. And it was basically on how to trigger atheists. And it's not, people are saying, why do you want to trigger atheists? It's like, no, I don't want to trigger them. What it is for some reason, these arguments do that. It's a description, right? It's not, I'm not trying to do it. It just seems to be the case that these arguments seem to trigger atheists. And we're going to try to figure out, one, why, and if the arguments are good arguments, right? Arguments should always be tested. They can be retested, and they could, be valid, they can be sound, they can be coherent, incoherent, cogent, non-cogent, depending on the type of argument. And so I want to kind of take, each one as I wrote them, and I'm going to do part 1 today. And I got Karma Valley in here. You guys remember her?
Hi, kids.
And,
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, anytime. What am I going to do? Say no to you? Hang on, I got to have my coffee.
Have a sip.
So good. All right, so the first one I did was kind of predicated on the show that we had with David Smalley, and for some reason he was awfully triggered by me referring to him as a fence sitter. And again, this is a descriptive position, not something that I'm saying, hey, look, you are a fence sitter or whatever. It describes the middle ground, and that's what I am. I'm a fence sitter. I'm an agnostic. It's not a pejorative. It's not an invective. I'm not trying to insult anybody. But if I'm a fence sitter and you're sitting in my seat, you're sitting in the area that I'm in, I'm going to call you a fence sitter too, unless you just for some reason hate that term and you think it's a label. Fine, whatever. But the fact remains that that term, fence sitter, is what's generally understood as the middle ground position. With me so far, Heather?
Yeah, yes, I'll let you continue. Why is it so offensive to be called a fence sitter? Is there another term?
I don't know. I don't know what else they would call the person. I mean, it's just saying, hey, you're sitting on a fence between two positions, right? Here's position A and here's position, B or not A or whatever
right.
Well, it's not even not A, it's B or A or B. What position are you taking? So if I say, look, what's your stance on gun control? Do you think we should have, safety checks? Well, tell me your position on there. If you say, I believe we should have, checks before we give somebody a gun, okay, then you have a stance on it. If you say, I don't think we should have checks before we have a gun, you have a stance on it. If you say, look, I got no position on it either way, I don't care. You're fence sitting between the position of thinking
right.
we should have checks and the position that we shouldn't have checks. Not that, you may not have a position either way. That's particularly fine. There's issues out there all the time. I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't have a say in it. Pick one.
Right.
But they have to recognize that is what fence fitting is generally referred to. And so I have my argument that if they're going to call lack of belief atheism, the non-belief position, right? The lack of a belief that God exists, and that's my spot. That's where I'm sitting as agnostic. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to go over this argument with people, and hopefully we can kind of test it, get field questions from the live chat, and people can call in later. I have a number if we can get to that. But
awesome.
So have you looked it over at all? You had a chance to?
Yeah, I did. I've got it up too. Yeah. I'm just, I'm here to learn. I really am. I'm in way over my head already, but I do identify as atheist.
Well, you believe all gods are at BS, so you're not offensive. You actually hold the position, hey, look, there are no gods. And
mm-hmm.
It's only belief. It's not a knowledge claim. It's not a certainty claim. It's your belief. There are no gods. Okay, great. You're not offensive. You've taken a position, right?
Yeah, I mean, I understand being a fence sitter. I wonder if they're offensive or offended by being called a fence sitter. You know, maybe that's
Why?
part of the. I don't know. It just
I
seems like
don't know how to be really a pejorative type term. I mean, just saying that, look, you're just sitting on the fence between two positions.
right.
I'm not offended by it. Now, yeah, sure, they have a right, I guess, to be offended by anything. But, I mean, I'm not going to wade too much into that because, again, that's fifis. And look, if I'm not upset by being called a fencer, I don't know why they would be. But, you know, I'm not them. So, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that was Smiley's take, right?
Yeah, he seemed to be offended by it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why. I've got to pull up that the blog, but I wanted to show something real quick. I wanted to show you guys real quick before I get started on that. So as you guys may know, let me move that up there. I have that McRae null Venn diagram. You can't see it, Heather, but the outside can in a second here. It's kind of a funny story. I was talking to somebody on Facebook who was promoting things for like the AXP and Eighth Experience and Truth Wanted and those kind of shows, Talk Heathen. And she was like, well, why don't you call them with the arguments? I go, look, they know my arguments. They haven't been able to refute them, and they're not going to be able to do it through a call-in program. Why waste my time? I'm not there for entertainment. I want people to learn this stuff. And she's like, well, you've already explained why your diagram's invalid. I'm like, really? I have? By whom? I'm like, if anybody's explained it to me, they certainly were not competent in that area because there's just nothing wrong with this unless, you know, you can really find something significantly wrong with it. And she goes, well, you know, people have showed you that it's wrong. I'm like, okay, why don't you take it to somebody who's an expert in these things and ask them? And she said, yeah, you know, I've got somebody who teaches, I don't know if it was logic or epistemology or somebody who teaches something. And she comes back later. She's like, yeah, they didn't find anything wrong with it. And I'm like, oh, shocker. You know, like, okay. Big surprise there. Let me get, I'm trying to get this pulled up here in the stream. So go ahead.
I can see the diagram now. I just have the sound off, but yeah.
So before I find that real quick, my blog, because I seem to have not put it in the OBS. Can you get some preliminary questions from the audience? What they think this particular argument's saying, and let's get a kind of a straw poll of if they think it's good, if it's valid, if it's sound. And again, this is not a formal logical structure, right? It's still a form of deduction. It's still a form of, hey, look, if this is the case, and these are the ramifications of that. And so talk to the audience real quick.
Yeah, you guys, I'm not seeing any questions. Statements that are interesting, but
you can read those too. I like statements.
All right. I'm offended that they're offended, Mr. Serious says. I mean, sometimes, yeah, it's more about them. It's like, why would they be offended? Well, I don't know. I mean, but it's more about them than the issue at hand. Okay, so let's see.
But do you think that's the real issue? Do you think it's just because they don't like being called fence sitters, or they don't think they're actually sitting on the fence? Because I think it's they don't think they're actually sitting on the fence.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would have said A, but now you're probably right. Yeah, it's probably they don't like that they're not. It sounds like they're not taking a position.
Yeah.
I had a teacher in college that said, you can't do that. You gotta choose a side. So I don't know. Maybe it's something ingrained in them. I think Manya referred somewhere to that.
Well, yeah, because they've been told don't take a position because then you have a burden of proof, which you can have anyways, which is so it's kind of silly. But you know they're so fearful of having a burden of proof, and even Smalley was saying something like that. Hey, I don't want to have a burden of proof. But the point is that it doesn't change the logical facts. It doesn't change that you are in between two positions, which you haven't taken a position. Right. You can call it anything you want. I don't care. But,
okay, so explain your position. So you identify as agnostic, right?
Correct.
Okay, so explain that to me just so I have your understanding.
Okay, so the agnostic position is the position that dealing with the ontological thing, and so hopefully people can see this in a second here. Dealing with the ontological question of God existing. So it has nothing to do with knowledge. It has nothing to do with knowability. Those are other usages in the epistemological domain. There's something called the epistemological proposition of agnosticism, which are God's knowable. Not talking about that. There's different senses of words and how they're being used in the domain of discourse, which I don't think a lot of atheists recognize. But be that as may. So if you say, hey, look, does God exist? And you say yes, most people would say yes, that's a theist, right?
Right.
Okay, and we're going to use it for that. And we're going to talk about global as like any God, not just the Christian God, just the global. And sure. So if you say no, you're saying, hey, look, there's not at least one God that exists, right? There's just no gods in the universe. Okay. Okay, so good. Sounds good so far. But if you don't have a position on it, you're like, I don't have, I can't answer yes, I can't answer no. I don't know how to answer that. And I'm going to remain agnostic on that question. I'm going to suspend judgment on it. Right? That's the agnostic position. That make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So what's the argument from Smiley then? Not to bring him up again, but I'm just curious. I mean, it's
Well, he
agnosticism or
didn't
atheism.
really have an argument. I mean, it was a logically inconsistent system. He had conflicting statements. And he, like a lot of lack belief atheists, just talk out of both sides of their mouths. You know, they'll say, look, you know, the theist is wrong, but I'm not claiming that God doesn't exist. Well, yes, you are. I mean, if you're saying that they have a false position, you are claiming that there are no gods. And so they just fall back to this position of, oh, I merely lack a belief. Okay, if you merely lack a belief, you're sitting where the agnostic is. You are fence sitting. Groups like American Atheists and groups like Atheist Experience are seemingly putting forth, hey, we're promoting fence sitting here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. Trying to find some questions. Nikki Lane says, why does it bother others what someone believes? And simplistic as it is, why? We were talking about that last night. Why does it bother other people? Well, if you're not coming from a place of understanding, I want to understand your position, so I'm more educated. Then, I mean, why? Why does it matter?
I think a lot of it carries over to the fact that, beliefs have a lot to do with how we vote, have a lot to do with how we interact with people. Right. And a lot of it has to do with religiosity, right? I don't think there'd be a lot of pushback if there wasn't so much in religion being put into the secular side, right? To schools and to things of that, and to politics, right? So it does play a part. So I guess I kind of figure, look, if we can just get people to not even believe in God, then all that's eliminated. Okay, and that's an argument to utility, and I understand that if they don't have to convince somebody that God doesn't exist. They just have to move them away from theism, so they're not believing. So they get rid of all the other things attached to it, like young Earth creationism and religiosity and dogmatic indoctrination of kids and things of that nature. And I get that. I do understand their point of view on that, right? But they have to be honest how they do that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I have a question. So is it just with? I mean, can I say I don't believe in man-made gods?
What's a man-made God?
But all of the books that we have that were written by men, when it comes to religion, can I, if I say I don't believe in what's out there already, but there's a possibility of some being creating the universe, then where does that, am I a fence sitter?
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Possibilities are a dime a dozen. I mean, who cares if there's a possibility, right? You have said there are no gods. That's your position. So that entails that anybody that says, hey, look, my God exists, you would say, no, that doesn't, right? It's a consistent logical system. Just because it's possible, it's fine. You're like, hey, look, I believe there are no gods. They're all BS, but it's possible one exists. That's fine. You're still an atheist.
Sure. I'm just trying to get the definitions down. So what are we saying? How are we defining God? As just some freak thing, or could it be someone who's all knowing and created us to fuck with us for?
That's a good question. Real quick, a Flamo for $2 says, "Hail Eris, that's how you trigger atheist." Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Look. People have had discussions about God for thousands of years, right? And I think it's weird that you have to keep going, not you, but they have to keep going back to square one. What do you mean by God? And so I just have a bare bones stipulative usage of the term. And by the way, I actually put this down one time. I said, this is my stipulative working definition arguendo. And somebody says, can you prove your definition? I'm like, don't talk to me any longer. Just go away. I just can't deal with that level of just dumb.
But what's your answer to it? I mean, I'm curious.
Okay, so my answer would be, look, I would just say, look, any God that's necessary being that without whom existence you couldn't have any reality, or that can prescriptively change the laws of the universe. I'm fine with something along those lines. It doesn't have to really make that much of a difference. I think if you believe if you believe everything's natural, you've already excluded any type of supernatural causation, and therefore any type of God that you can posit that has any kind of supernatural things. I don't know if you're a naturalist or not, but that does entail that. If you're a metaphysical naturalist, you don't believe in any supernatural beings. I mean, you believe that they're all nonsense, right? So, or that they don't exist.
Yep, for sure. That would definitely be me. A comment. Let's see here. I did have somebody, and I'm trying to find. By the way, let's see. Intrigue Feline says, by the way, let's see what position the people in the chat here have. 1 for atheist, 2 for theist, and 3 for agnostic. I'll start by saying 3 to, go ahead.
Okay. I'm trying to
They're
read
gonna
this stuff,
put
but I'm
numbers,
missing
I
it.
guess.
So I'll put 3. Tom has a question. I see that. You want to read that one?
Yeah, I'm wondering why I don't see it. It's from Tom.
Mr. Tom 34B. It's right underneath the super chat.
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know why it's so okay. I am the I know I am the odd man out, but I'm nope, can't say it.
Huxleyan.
Agnostic.
Huxleyan.
Huxleyan, agnostic. Okay, you guys are schooling me here. Not the agnosticism you would usually talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't consider myself a fence sitter. Am I right? And he's asking you.
Yes. Okay. So he still might be a fence sitter, but it depends. But he's not. He's a Huxleyan agnostic. A Huxleyan agnostic is a person who holds to what's called a normative epistemic principle. He would hold that. Look, you just shouldn't have any kind of beliefs unless you can somehow have sufficient reason to do it in a more of a scientific methodological approach. That's how Huxley said, look, the theist and the atheist, you're both out to lunch. Both of you guys have no justifications to hold your positions. So I would say that you are a fence sitter in that regard, Tom, because you still haven't had a position, right? The Huxleyan would say, look, I'm not saying there's a God. I'm not saying there isn't a God. I'm fence sitting on that position. So the fact that you would be a Huxleyan agnostic to have that normative epistemic principle that you haven't had justification yet would seem to me imply, I don't know if it logically entail, but it certainly would imply that you don't have a position, right?
Yeah, this is so interesting. Okay, so Helios says for $10, most were raised Christian. In Christianity, being neutral is the most immoral position. Even atheism is better. They have been trained since childhood to see terms like fence sitter as a pejorative, and I would agree
with that. Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of people that are these lack of belief atheists, a lot of them came out of religion. I've noticed. The ones that never had any religious beliefs to begin with, this is just obviously subjective, but I think a lot of them are the ones who go, look, there are no gods. You know, there's just, I don't buy any of it. I think it's all wrong. I think that everything's natural. Maybe not be able to explain anything by that. I get it. It's why are we here? Why is the universe? These are all existential questions that who the hell knows the answer to? That people have been asking those for millennia.
So so with the information that we have, this is the position you take, right? So this is so interesting. I asked you this once, and you gave it a term, and I don't remember what that was, but I had heard a piece on NPR where they were talking about, and it just resonated with me so much because they were saying that basically we don't get a choice, innately we believe or we don't. And I've tried forever to, I really am envious.
You talk about Dostoevstic involuntarism.
That's what it is. Yes.
Yeah. And the thing with that is that, we have the ability to make decisions, but the Dostoevstic involuntarist will say, look, I cannot force myself to believe something to be the case, right? So if God is saying, believe in me or be damned, that's kind of an unfair situation because you can't force yourself to believe no matter what, no matter how hard you try. Say, I want to force myself to believe I can fly. You're not going to be able to do it. Now, sure, you can go through drugs and hypnosis, and I understand self-deception, but I can't right now just say, I believe I can fly. My mind can't do it, right? So that's what I mean by Dostoevstic involuntarist.
That's so interesting. I mean, ever since I heard that, that's exactly.
All right, so let's kind of dive into here. Unfortunately, I just realized my layout is not really that great for this, so people are just going to have to bear with me. So if you're looking at my blog, this is from February 14th, which people know was my birthday. I did turn 51. Okay,
happy birthday!
How to trigger atheists, and I kind of added in the part 1 fencing because I did 2 other parts, and we'll get to those another time. Okay, so this is by the way, this is a Creative Commons photo. So the guy fitting on the fence. Guy sitting on the fence. Yeah, I thought it was good too. All right. Hopefully the outside can read this again because I have it at the very bottom. Didn't really have a place to put this.
It's super okay, but as you go up,
can you see it at least?
I can't see the verbiage. I just see the very top of it, but I've got it on the screen.
Okay,
it's fine
on the video because I'm not watching the video.
I'm watching the video.
Says, happy birthday, Steve. I appreciate it. I had a wonderful birthday because I literally slept for 12 hours. I turned everything off. And then the last night, I was even talking to Heather after her and Claire's stream for 5 minutes after I got done talking to her. I'm like, I'm dead. I'm tired. I'm going, and I passed the hell out.
I could tell.
Yeah. All right. So let's read through this. All right, so again, I want you guys to test this. This is what we're doing. We want to see if this is a good argument because my arguments are being out there. People are knowing my arguments. The WASP argument, the weak atheist special pleading argument, still has never been assailed. Anybody who's read it, the guy that I was talking about that she had sent the Venn diagram to, it didn't appear he had a problem with the WASP argument either. You know, it's just an if then else, which is deductively valid. It's just P implies Q, therefore R, which is whatever. There's a thing for that. It makes it a tautology, but I'm going to do a blog on that later. My arguments aren't getting out there, so I want them to be tested. I want people to go, okay, let's see if we can assail this. And by the way, just saying, oh, it's semantics. No, it's not. It's his logic, not semantics. Or your definition's wrong, or you're misleading people by saying atheism is this. Has nothing to do with any of that. Those are not even defeaters to an argument. Okay. And by the way, welcome back, Zeshi. Hopefully that you got your Twitter thing fixed on that, by the way, Zeshi. All right, so I posted this in a Facebook group. You know what? See, I got a spelling error already, right? I should say one of the ones.
Oh, no, you don't. You? Oh, my God.
I'll fix this stuff. Grammar's important, according to Cheshire.
It is. Yes. I'm a Nazi about it, too. It makes me crazy.
But this is why. I write my blog at 3 a.m., and when I go over it, I kind of fix the things afterwards. I write in a very free-flowing way. So one of the ones that contain the usual new atheist trademark, and we've already went over what those properties are, right? Those things that make that person under what I would consider to be a new atheist. I think the term is quitic. Was it quitic? Was the word quiticy? Quitics? I don't know. Where's feline intrigue feline when you need her? What's the word for having certain properties of something? Is it quiticy? I think it's quiticy or something. Anyways, a tangent.
She'll tell us.
I've had a lot of coffee. All right. And one of the admins was uber triggered by it and threatened me with being muted, even though no rule was broken. I was uber polite and explained why this post is completely correct. And I do believe it's completely correct. I could be wrong. We'll see. I am more than ever convinced that lack of belief atheists are, in fact, at least on par as dumb as flat earthers and young earth creationists. I'm just laying it out there on this. Look, I'm not playing with your fifis, right? I think flat earthers are dumb. I do. Okay. It's not quintessential. No, it's quitic, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
She hasn't answered yet.
It's one of those things where I hate knowing something and I just can't think of it. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think that these people are not very bright, at least when it comes to this particular topic, right? The level of stupid is almost too ineffable for me to explain in writing, which I'll fix. Again, I'm making a mental note.
Smack.
So I'm not even going to try, but I will tell you how to trigger an atheist. Don't use this to troll, but facts are facts, and facts don't care about fifis, right? Again, I'm not trying to troll anybody. I'm not trying to upset anybody. These are just quitted. Yes, thank you, Kino.
There it is, quiddity.
Quiddity, thank you. People were like, where the hell did you pull that out from? I don't know. Quiddity, yes. Quidditch. No, but quiddity is a property of a person or property of something, right? Something that's innate about that property thing.
I'll bring it up.
Yeah, quiddity. Yeah, can you read the definition for us?
Yeah.
She is so useful, isn't she?
I know. I'm sorry.
She's no Cheshire. Don't be wrong, but this is.
I can never compete with her. You guys, I'm the kid that was.
Try.
I'm the kid that was picked last at kickball. I got an invite like 30 minutes ago, so shame on you for not giving me more warning. Okay, so the inherent nature or essence of something, or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Does it? Okay, explain it to me then.
It's just an inherent property of something that makes it something what it is. So the new atheist,
someone or something.
Yeah, okay. The new atheist TM have those like 10 traits that I've said generally. I've seen argument by argumentium ad meme. Refusing to accept classical logic. These are things that I've seen that typify the new atheist TM that. Just not the critical thinker out there. I mean, it's not, again, these are very subset. These are not, I'm not talking about atheists in general by any stretch of imagination. Most of my audience are atheists. My shows are designed to help atheists become better critical thinkers against theists because I want to see better dialogue between the two, right? That's the whole goal of these things.
Yeah, definitely. But when it comes to the flat earthers and you say they're just dumb, do you think there's a certain group of people who are more prone to, it's almost like they're looking for something, some kind of conspiracy, even if it's not true. How?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
no, I think so. They want to find. Okay, a lot of them do have conspiratorial mindsets, and I've seen that with the new
right.
atheists as well. Steve must be a theist. Steve has an agenda. Steve, Steve.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like what? So education is an agenda now?
Oh my
Okay,
God.
whatever.
Yeah, it's the enemy.
Oh,
Yeah,
you've got some
that's
fans, by the way.
I do.
I like
Oh, you
Heather.
like
I like Heather
oh,
too.
thank you.
Aw. So I have to
Thank
ask them:
you.
have you guys subscribed to Heather? Because if you say I like Heather
Oh, I
and you haven't
love you
subscribed
guys.
to her, I'm going to call you out on a performance contradiction of sorts. Go subscribe to
I love
her.
you guys too. I'm in way over my head, and I'm just happy to learn because it's fascinating stuff. It really is.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Okay, so let's see. There's uninformed or ignorant, and there's mental handicap. Flat earthers are often neither. What is meant by stupid? Not defending the belief, and that's Jamie Russell.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
Jamie. Willful ignorance.
right.
Deliberate, willful ignorance, right? If anybody has mental limitations, right? If they have some kind of cognitive impairment, they're not stupid, right? I mean, nobody would ever insult anybody that has mental health stuff. We really think mental health is extremely important. And yes, it's unfortunate that some people that do have mental health problems might end up being flat earthers, but for the most part, the flat earthers I run into, they're just willful ignorance, right?
Right.
So, all right, let's see where we're at here. Just tell an atheist that holds atheism as merely lack of belief, and for the purpose arguendo for this, a lack of belief atheist is not just somebody who advocates lack of belief is a necessary and sufficient condition for atheism, because that's one sense of the term. Again, words have senses. That's one sense of the term. But there's also somebody who holds that position, right? So I have to make the distinction there. There's the sense of the word that a lack of belief atheist is somebody who thinks that lack of belief is merely sufficient, necessary and sufficient for atheism, but may not hold a positive epistemic status. But for this particular argument, it's the person who holds that lack of belief is both necessary and sufficient for atheism and does not hold a positive epistemic status, which means they don't believe that gods don't exist. Okay, does that make sense, Heather?
Yeah, that helps. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was going to read Chris Foster. You want to keep reading?
Sure. Yeah. Have you got a question?
It's not a question. Chris Foster says, could that be the problem then? They're looking at their own definitions of the words, slapping them together and making the agnostic atheist label not realizing other definitions.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
could be.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember, and I think, I don't know who I was talking to earlier. Was I talking to you? I don't know. I talked to a lot of people, no offense. Which one are you again?
Whatever.
Yeah, which one are you? Oh, no, no. Okay, I remember. But I was talking to somebody earlier today on the phone and trying to explain the difference between internal and external critiques, right? And so when I'm able to do an internal critique in their framework, right? I don't have to give them any of my usages of terms. I don't have to give any of my opinions on it. It's just working within their system. They don't seem to be able to do that with the philosophical understandings, right? They just say they're wrong or they don't exist, but they're not able to go, look, Steve, I understand your usages. Here's ours. La-di-da. Okay, I have no problem with that. There are atheists out there that can do that. I have no problem with that. It's the ones that say, look, here's your usages, here's ours. Yours are fundamentally wrong. These are right. There is no other way. Then you're done. And what's worse is they project it onto me. And they're like, well, Steve's going around telling people you can't use those words this way or only his ways are right. No, I've never, ever, 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 ever made those arguments. But people have to try to attack me by saying things that I've never said or argued. That's why I actually have in my blog, Steve McRae's positions
smart.
Yeah, Steve McRae's position to avoid straw man abatement, because I'm like, look, this is from 2018, 3 years ago, right? Going on, whatever. That this is my position. So you're telling me that my position is not that? Well, here you go. Now, evidence that you're straw manning me. So.
Yeah, I think that was a smart move. Let's see. Are you we're gonna keep reading, right?
Yeah, let's keep reading. So, just tell the atheist that holds atheism and merely lack of belief God exists. That is called fence sitting. Sit back and watch them lose their shit, even though that is exactly what they are, fence sitters. And again, descriptive term. They are sitting on the fence between believing God exists and believing God does not exist, just like agnostics do. If you really want to see them get triggered, tell them the most atheist groups promote fence sitting, because they do. It is objectively and logically the case. See diagram below, and we'll get into that. So Even though they don't want to take the term, and that's fine, whatever. It's a descriptive label, but they are in the same logical position as the agnostic. They can't get away from that. I mean, I've proven this numerous times using logic. Nobody out there has ever, said, no, that's wrong. Lack of belief for God exists and lack of belief for God does not exist are sub-contrary positions. You have one, you have to have the other. The Venn diagram demonstrates this. So they can't attack the logic, right? So they have to go for other things they attack.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me too. Exploratory Minds Project gave you 20 pounds.
Ooh,
Curious it's a big one. Curious what you would call one who believes in no gods, but believes the universe as an emergent result of itself is a living conscious entity. And therefore, this thing's not, and therefore is super being is in the universe, but no, not its creator. Sorry.
See, I think there's a problem with the terminology there, because that describes pantheism, right? Or some form of even pandeism, where like God in pandeism, there was a being that said, look, I created the universe. I mean, I actually became one with the universe. They're like death in pandeism became one with the universe. It is the corpse of God, I guess you can say, in pandeism, from my understanding. Pantheism might be a little bit different, where it's an emergent property of God somehow, or God is somehow responsible for becoming the universe. The universe and God are one. But at that point, are you really saying you don't believe in gods? Because I think that you are, right? If you believe in an intelligent agency that's a necessary and sufficient being, then that's a god. So I think I think they have a conflict when they say, look,
that's interesting.
I believe there's a being that exists, that's intelligent, that without whom the universe couldn't exist, but it's not a god. Well, what the hell is it then? I don't it just seems it seems really kind of incompatible with the way we use the terms to try to describe these concepts, to me personally.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would have said, I mean, if everything's combined, but that further explains. I mean, you have to believe that in a god then. I mean, if
I would think so. If you believe that the universe came about by non-naturalistic causes, then I'm going to call that a deity of some kind, Yeah. Treat Figureline has a question.
Yeah. You do have a preference. The preference is, am I reading the right one?
Yes.
Steve, you do have a preference though, but who doesn't? The issue is to have a preference and justify that preference. The issue is that you are misunderstood. Okay. So she's saying, the issue isn't to have a preference and justify that preference. The issue is that you are misunderstood.
Yeah. We all have.
That's what they're.
Yeah, you can lean one way or the other, right? I mean, I lean a little bit now towards this side of the fence, right? I mean, the area on the fence is broad. I mean, there's a broad area, middle ground between the two positions, and so you can kind of have some leeway there, right? I mean, so if anybody can lean toward one side or the other, right? So. Most people are on the average atheist would never get triggered by this stuff. The average atheist that wants to learn logic and things like that, going to go, this is right. What's wrong with this? It's the ones that have a disconnect in their brain because they've been told for so long, you're taking a position by not taking a position, which is just merely not believing in something, but you're still sitting on the fence between God exists and God does not exist. You're still sitting in between those two positions. So,
right, I agree with you. I don't see any questions. Are you to keep reading?
Yeah. Okay. So this was the post which uses the atheism as lack of belief, their own definition that shows that in fact makes them fence sitters. And again, I understand the semantic context here. Fence sitters is a descriptive term, but this seems to trigger them, even though I am a fence sitter too. The ANSI graphic may not line up on some devices, and I've noticed that it's hard to do the ANSI stuff. We'll get to that. So, begin post on Facebook group. Here we go. Merely saying that you do not believe in God exists doesn't mean you took a position you are not a fence sitter. If you do not believe God exists and you do not believe God does not exist, then you're a fence sitter between those positions. Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. Yeah.
I mean, if I said to you, Heather, are you a Republican or a Democrat? And you say, well, I'm an independent. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're neither of one of those.
You're neither. Yeah.
But if I say, hey, are you a Republican or not? And you say, well, I'm not a Republican. It doesn't mean you took a position between Republicans and Democrats. It just tells me you're not a Republican.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't know why that's so hard for lack of belief atheists to figure out.
Well, it's more, I don't think that it's hard. It just seems that it's offensive for some reason. That's why I'm saying it says more about them than it does about the issue at hand. I mean, it's not personal. It's just, here are the rules and that doesn't fit. I don't
Now, I mean,
don't know.
obviously, like Republican and Democrat are not exhaustive, right? I'm not trying to say that that is a strict dichotomy or anything, but still
No,
is.
it's a good analogy.
But it's a good analogy because if I say, hey, look, I want to know if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and I say you're a Republican, you say no, it doesn't tell me if you're a Democrat or not. You could be an independent. But I mean, the
Right.
gumball analogy is different. If it's either odd or even, right? And so that's the only states it can be. But you're going to have three positions: believe it odd, believe it either, even, or believe neither. And theoretically, you believe both, but that's, as we know, contradiction. But rationally speaking, you can believe it either, neither, even, or odd. Those are three epistemic dispositions. And so that when they say there's no middle ground, they're just BSing people. Of course there is. But they're not understanding that the middle ground is not between believe and not believe. That nobody's argued that. That's where Matt Dillahunty will take what my arguments and twist it into that and mislead people. And I think he does it deliberately. I don't think he's a dumb guy. But nobody's ever said there's a middle ground between believe and not believe. There is no middle ground. Nobody's ever said that there was in classical logic. What they've said is there's a middle ground between believe it's true and believe it's false. That's where the middle ground is. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
because
it
you can have no
does.
position either way. I don't believe either. That's my middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could get technical and start defining terms and what if, I mean, if these are the only options. I keep going to, if these are the only options we have, there's a creator or there's not. If there's some, I don't know, other option there. I mean, I guess
the other option is
nature.
the option is for your belief. Either God exists or God does not. That is a dichotomy.
Okay, so if that's the question, that's the dichotomy.
But what's your belief on it is not dichotomous. You can say, I believe God doesn't, I believe God does, or I have no position either way. It doesn't change the ontological status of God existing or not. God is going to exist either way. Either he does or he doesn't. But how you believe about that could be varied. You can say, look, I believe I don't even know what the hell word God means. That's an agnostic, right? Or I believe I don't care one way or another. That's an atheist. But if I just say, look, I don't believe God exists, but I'm not saying God doesn't exist. I have no belief either way. Yeah, I'm not believing God exists, but it's the same thing like the Republican. I'm not a Republican, but I'm not a Democrat.
Yeah, that's why the analogies. Yeah, totally understood. An intrigued feline says, she was telling me not, okay, I shouldn't have said anything, but don't ask about the big brother of bees, the wasp.
The weak atheist special pleading argument, which I kind of talked about earlier in the stream. But it's an unassailed argument that I have, but it's a whole different argument. But it's one of the ones that have stood the test of time so far. Nobody's figured out how to. Well, it's a valid argument. It's if then else is a valid logical argument.
Okay, so how do I say this? Zeshi?
Yes.
Wasn't there someone saying there was a third option about God's existence, and that's kind of what we just talked about.
If there, what would be either something's true or it's not true. Term. Yeah, God exists or God does not exist. What would be any other thing? I don't know what that would even mean.
Right, accidental or purposeful. Yeah. Okay.
But there is something out there, and unless he's referring to the Dillahunty Dodge, because the Dillahunty Dodge is something very similar. He'll be giving two choices. He's like, well, there might be a third that we aren't aware of. Well, but what is that third? I was like, you still have to tell us what the third is. What you can say? Look, there might be a third between belief and not belief. What would that mean? That's dodging the question. You believe or you don't believe. You can't say, well, there might be a third. No, really, in classical logic, there isn't. So that's actually
so it's with what we know.
Dodge.
With those two terms. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was looking at. I'm not sure who was saying it. The pandeism. And I tried to look that up, and I don't have a damn clue. So if anybody wants to explain that to me, who was it?
Pandeism again would be God is okay in the theist.
Nikki Lynn. Yeah.
In the theist perspective, theist is a personalized God, right? Deist not necessarily so. A deist can say, look, God created the universe, but then walked away from mankind, never to interact with them, or God passed away or died or became the universe, right? So we're living like the corpse of God. Those are different versions of pandeism. But they all go back to some intelligent agent that without whom the universe wouldn't exist, right? So even though that may not have been around anymore, like somebody dies, their body's still around, but they're not, right? So the universe is still around, but that being isn't around. But you still, if you found a dead dog, you wouldn't say dogs never existed, right?
Yeah.
You believe, hey, one time dogs existed. So.
Okay. Wow. I haven't heard about that yet. Yeah. Okay. So I don't see any questions. Let's see. It was very dumb. Steve McRae, you said, this is entry feed line again. You said that agnostic was the position that God is indeterminable, as it has no way to be explained what God would entail, etc.
When did I ever say that? I don't recall ever saying that. Sure, that was me that said that, because I don't remember saying anything like that at all.
Let's hear the arguments.
I mean, the person is indeterminate in that they haven't made up their mind, but the epistemological proposition would be God's knowability, not indeterminability, but God's knowability. We have no ability to understand whether we can know whether God exists. That's the epistemological proposition in the epistemological domain, but we're not even talking about the epistemological domain. We're talking about the ontological domain, which is the position that you don't have, your psychological state of not having a position either way. Man, I didn't expect this many questions. We haven't even got to even the fence sitting yet. You know?
I know we're still going. I think we're like halfway through. But Solar DNA says, what are you if you don't believe there is a God, but you don't believe there's not a God? You're a fence sitter, right?
Fence sitter, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Just earlier. I'm not sure.
Zeshi says, this is funny too. He says, have you forgotten if you had an if, that means it's not logical. I was just talking about that again to somebody on a phone call today, telling them, yeah, I actually had it twice now in my life. Somebody say, well, your argument's invalid because you starts with if. And I'm like, I'm done. Just you're done. I have to think of a word for that because it's not the hang up, right? It's
okay,
I'm not hanging up on them. I'm just saying you're done.
Give me an example. Give me an example of what you're saying. So
okay, like a modus ponens argument is a conditional argument, right? If I don't know what, again, I don't know where I came up with this from. I read one part of it, but the other one is kind of made up. But if I say, if the moon is made of if the moon is made of green cheese, then I am a moose. The moon is made of green cheese, therefore I am a moose. That is absolutely logically valid. It's P implies Q, P therefore Q. The conditional is true. The second premise is true, therefore, no, I'm sorry. It's logically valid. The first premise is false. The second premise, no, the first premise is true. The second premise is false, and then conclusion doesn't follow because the conclusion does follow if they were true. So if they were true, it's logically valid, right? So think about this. The conditional is, if the moon is made of green cheese, then I am a moose. Okay, that conditional is always true unless the Q is false, unless the consequent is false.
Right.
That conditional is always true. So if both P and Q are false, that conditional is still true. If you look at the truth tables. So in that particular case, the first P, which is the moon is made of green cheese, is false.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm a moose. I'm not a moose. So those are two falsities, right? P and Q are false.
Okay.
That makes that conditional true. So that first premise is true. The second one, though, the moon is made of green cheese, that isn't true. So it's not sound. So it's deductively valid, but it's not sound. And by the way, I'm going to do a whole video on logic again because I had somebody ask me this the other day, and I was like, you know what, I might as well just do something on this. So
yeah, I'd love to see that. That's tough stuff. Okay.
Well, I put it on Twitter, and it was kind of surprising the results. I had a person in there that I put a valid and sound argument, and 34% said it wasn't sound, and 30% said it was. Most people said it was valid, and I was like, well, what's unsound about this? And then it dawned on me they don't understand what the conditional implication is, and so
it needs to be explained.
Yeah, it needs to be explained because again, when you have P and Q that are false, that makes the conditional true. Welcome to logic.
Yeah, no, I agree. It would take many videos. I'm sure you could make many. The 33. Where's Chesh? We don't know. I don't know. Where is Chesh?
I don't know.
I think she's sleeping because we were up kind of late last night. Let's see.
But anyway, so do you get in that modus ponens? They all start off with the if then because that's the conditional. If then, if P then Q. So you can't just say we start off with if. That's not an argument.
Right. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
If.
All right. Let's get to the blog. So merely saying that you don't believe in God does not mean you took a position and are not fence sitting. If you do not believe God exists and you don't believe God does not exist, then you are a fence sitter between those propositions. You just do not believe either of them and are fence sitting in middle between God exists and believing God does not exist. I don't know why I capitalized that. I had 3 errors I got to fix in here. Atheists who merely hold to a lack of belief are in fact fence sitting. And I have a little diagram here. Can you see the diagram?
I can.
It'll come up in a second. All right.
Oh no, not the diagram.
It should come up on the outside here soon. So on one side of the fence, if you look on the outside video, this is the people that believes God exists. This would be a theist. On the other side of the fence, people believe God does not exist. This would be the atheist on the philosophical understanding. And then this is the lack of belief atheist sitting here with the agnostic. You're fence sitting between these two positions. It's not complicated. But then somebody will say, well, atheism is not the belief that God does not exist. Then what the hell you want to call this position? Except if you're Randolph Richardson, who, whatever his name is from the atheist Canadian guys. Oh, that's an anti-theist position. Nobody uses it that way. No, nobody. It's ridiculous.
Hey, let me read this. Of Lameo says for $5. I know the problem. Those atheists learn logic from Stefan
Molyneux.
Okay, sorry guys. The art of the argument.
If you don't know who Stefan Molyneux is, you're fortunate. Okay, trust me.
I don't.
Yeah, he's like a Jordan Peterson kind of guy.
What's the okay? So
he's just a very, from what I understand, misogynistic type guy.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Oh, you love those types, don't you?
Sounds like a great time.
Tell you what, man, you want to win Karma over? There you go. Just be a misogynist, and for some reason, man.
He might get his eyeballs scratched out. Rear. All right, let's see. All right, so Solar DNA says, I don't believe a God exists because I have no reason to believe so, but I don't believe one doesn't exist because I have no way to disprove so. Is this logic flawed? Well, you don't have to disprove it, right? So this is kind of what we were discussing.
But that's an agnostic, right? That's somebody who's sitting in the middle.
Right?
Yeah, you're just sitting in the middle.
There may be, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So,
and by the
Sam
way,
Harris.
Real quick, the intrigue feline put the truth table out there for the conditional. So if you look at the T equals T, that's for the what she's done is put the truth table for the conditional implication. So if P and Q are both true, the conditional implication is true. That's the first premise. If it's true false, then the conditional is false. If it's false false, it's true, and if it's true false true, it's true. So that conditional is always true unless the only case it's not is when P is true and Q is false. And we'll get into the logic of that. But people think that for soundness has to do with P and Q. No, those are just the variables. You can have both P and Q false. They're both bullshit. But the argument is sound because the premise is sound. Or the premise is true. The first premise is true. And that's how you do modus tollens. Without the ability to have that, you wouldn't be able to have what's called the contrapositive, which is not Q implies not P. And so there's a reason why this conditional is the way it is, and it gets into you can actually derive it using disjunctive syllogism, and it's actually the logical equivalency of not not P or Q, but that's only because of the truth tables work that way. And again, I'm going to explain all that when I get Landon in, because he's the logic expert on that, hopefully.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I mean, it's good to have some rules or a formula to revert back to, and that's how you can evaluate whatever the argument is. Okay. I kind of wanted to say, Chris Foster brings up Sam Harris. And years ago when I was totally obsessed with this mine was more about, what is life? Not so much who made it, but like, what is it? And how do we get here? Is it a matrix? Like, are we Sims? That kind of thing. But he brings up Sam Harris, which I really liked him. And I know we had talked about it. What's your feeling about him?
I tend to agree with Sam Harris on some stuff. I think that his approach to objective morality makes sense to me. The way he grounds it in unimodia and in harms and benefits, and once you have an arbitrary axioms, you can build an objective moral framework. I don't have an issue with that. I think it makes sense, and I agree with that. So yeah, I like his approach on that.
I do too. All right, let's see. I'm lost in the intrigued feline says, I think you're just lost in the valley now, always.
Hey, and I think for your show, you can use that.
That's actually kind of clever. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of subliminal things that could be used for that, but whatever, use it.
It's going to be fun. I think we're going to be on Chesh's thing. I think it's tomorrow night or something. I have to look. Yeah. I don't see any questions. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, sure.
Or where are we at?
All right. So again, believes God does not exist. That's got to be the position for something, right? So what do atheists want to call that proposition? If it's not the proposition for atheism, what the hell they want to call it? That's what it is. It's the position that if you say, look, that's not the position of an atheist, then what the hell you call an atheist that believes in no gods? I mean, sure, you can say, well, they believe no God, therefore they lack a belief. Okay, great, but this still means that this proposition is either true or false, right? If you believe that proposition is true, that would categorize you as an atheist. If you believe it's false, it would categorize you as a theist. If you have no position either way, you're fence sitting.
Yeah, it goes into the fencing area.
Awesome. So an atheist who merely lacks belief that there's no God sits right in that fence. Most atheist groups implicitly promote fence sitting by promoting atheism as merely a lack of belief. That's kind of funny if you really think about it. I find that to be funny that Atheist Experience and American Atheist and Atheist Republic and Atheist Alliance International all promote fence sitting. If you really think about this is what they're doing.
Okay,
they're
explain
saying,
that, because that'd be really funny
because they're not saying we want people to believe there are no gods. They're saying we just want a lack of belief. If you lack a belief, you're an atheist according to them. So that's the necessary and sufficient condition for them. So they say if you get to that, if you have that lack of belief, but you're not taking a positive position, there are no gods, that's all they care about. That's all they were trying to get you to go to.
Okay.
That's fence sitting.
Right,
they're promoting fence sitting. That's my argument.
I mean, yeah.
That is legit my argument. Lack of belief atheism is promoting fence sitting. And then I added this afterwards, so I put a little edit. And I'm adding in for a little more clear explanation of the argument here. Now think about this. A logically consistent system is where you have all the premises can be true at the same time. If they can't be, that's an inconsistent system. Okay? And this is how you test a lot of things, because you say, look, here's 3 premises. One of them has to be wrong if you have, a logically inconsistent system. So we ran into this the other day with Smalley, his system was logically incompatible or inconsistent. So he said, first premise, I am a lack of belief atheist, which is, again, somebody who just merely believes that they lack a belief. They're not taking any positive epistemic status. Okay? Does that make sense? They're just saying I have no belief either way.
I got that part. Yeah.
Okay. And they say I'm not a fence sitter. Those 2 statements cannot be true at the same time.
Yeah, they can't be true at the same time. Because you are a fence sitter.
Yes.
I don't understand how they wouldn't see that, but okay, yeah.
Okay. Well, because again, I think a lot of it is that they've been so indoctrinated to believe a very specific way because of like the atheist experience or things of that nature. They don't want to understand the actual topic very well. There's something called Morton's Demon, which was a guy named after Glenn Morton. And Morton's Demon was the way he described when he was a younger creationist, information that would be given to him, but if it conflicted with his younger creationist beliefs, that little demon in his head would kick it out.
In either direction, then fence sitting should be the position. I don't see why it's funny to promote that.
Look, no, I don't care about that. That's not the issue. The issue is they don't call it fence sitting. They don't think it's fence sitting. I'm not promoting any position. I don't care whether
it's not a promotion of anything, right?
The funny part is they're not realizing that's fence sitting. It's not that they're promoting the fence sitting position. Look, if some people want to promote agnosticism and say, look,
whatever.
I think the best position is agnostic. I think the other positions for atheism and theism are unjustifiable. Huxley would totally have agreed with that. That's fine. I don't promote any position. I tell you mine. It's descriptive. But they don't seem to realize that it's fence sitting. They get upset by that. That's what's funny.
Right. I want to understand why. That's more.
I don't know, but if they were honest about it, they're like, yes, we're promoting fence sitting. We want people just to not have a position either way. Why mislead people about it and try to make it between this, you either believe or you don't believe, which has nothing to do with what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, the question is different. So the answer would be, okay, so let's see. I'd love to hear rebuttal. Okay, so he's responding, I think, to you. So Mike Ortiz says, wait, who says that atheism equals lack belief is not fence sitting? So I guess he's not saying that. I haven't heard that proposed. If so, then I disagree. But every example I'm aware of is not what you're saying, i.e. Strawman Steve.
Well, I literally have had this discussion on Facebook. This is where this came from.
I can see the point, though. Yeah, but go ahead.
Well, he's may have never had to run into these people, but I run into them all the time. That's why
I know,
I wrote the
blog.
Sure. So right. I have seen these people. And we had one on the other day. His name was David Smalley. He was offended by being called fence sitting, even though he's like, well, I'm not fencing. I'm taking a position. No, you're not. I mean, again, he didn't understand the reasoning and the logic behind it. So it does happen, Mike. I mean, go watch their Cheshire's and I's Caffeine Corner with Smalley, and you'll see this is exactly what happened, right? So there's no straw man.
Yeah,
by the way, straw man is only when somebody has an argument, and then you take a different form of that argument, right? So even if I misrepresented somebody, that's not necessarily straw man.
Yeah,
Because if they don't have an argument, right?
Oh.
Are
Oh, you were
moving
frozen
on?
for a sec. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's move on.
All
Let me
right.
look for
Lack of belief atheists say that merely lack of belief in God makes no other definitive statement. This is logically represented as not BP, and sometimes also referred to weak atheism / implicit atheism. And by the way, I had this discussion with somebody on the Great Debate Community Facebook group the other day, and I think they gave me a little bit of lack of principle of charity, because when I say something like BP is true, right? The belief that God exists is true. I'm not referring to the mental state of that person, right? Because that mental state, it is true that they have the mental state. I'm referring to the truth value of if God doesn't exist, then theism is false, right? So BP, when I say, and again, it's just no syntactical. When I say like BP is false or theism is false, I'm not talking about their mental status, right? It is true that they have the belief that God doesn't exist.
It's their belief,
Right.
yeah.
What I'm saying is, if God doesn't exist, they have a false belief. It's not the same thing, because if God doesn't exist, they can still believe God exists. That they're not contingent on each other like that.
Yeah, they're still false.
Yeah, they're still false. So
They're still false.
if you found out God exists, you would say, hey, look, I had a false belief. I believed there was no gods, but I believe now because, I've seen God.
Like, take me to heaven.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I do now.
Yeah, exactly. But if you believe there are no gods and God does exist, you might have a false belief, but it's still true that you believe there are no gods. See the difference between the mental state and the truth, where the truth value is assigned. And so I had a discussion with somebody and I think they were taking me out of context, because I was very clear. Look, when somebody says theism is false, they're not talking about the belief that somebody has as no longer being the case. They still have that belief, but it's just a false belief. So it is true they believe.
It's true they believe it,
Right.
but it's not true
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not true. Period.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, this
awesome.
This is really helpful, actually. Okay.
An atheist who claims there is no gods is logically noted by B, not P, which is basically, I believe there's no gods. And it's not indexical. Usually you'll see an index like BA, not P, which is an agent, or BS, not P, which is subject, but whatever. I eliminate that just because I really do try to make these things simple.
Yeah,
I don't get.
That's good.
I try not to. I have some of my other blogs. I put a little more complexity in, but only that's for reference, right? Sometimes referred to as strong atheism, explicit atheism, right? So if you have the positive epistemic status that there are no gods, generally that's referred to as strong atheism. Have you heard that before?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I want you to explain it. I don't understand why it has to be strong.
Okay, so
Why?
it's where the negator is at. If I merely lack a belief, they call that weak atheism. It means, look, it's a negative position. I lack something. I don't have the belief, therefore it's negative. The positive or strong would be, I have the belief that there are no gods.
Okay, I got you.
So
I think I'd be a strong.
You'd be a strong atheist. Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. And there's a really good article on Stanford Encyclopedia about Draper noting that, look, if the lack of belief atheists wanted to use their schema and it's a psychological position, there's no such thing as strong atheism then, because you cannot get a propositional state out of a psychological state. So if atheism and theism are just psychological positions, there's no propositional thing to be had. Therefore, as he put it, it leaves it out. His words are, it leaves it out in the rain. But yeah.
Not whether or not it's true.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I mean, what would it mean to have a strong atheist if it's not propositional? I mean, the only thing would be a psychological belief, right? I mean, I believe there's no gods, but there's nothing propositional about it for strong atheism, as we understand B, not P, but whatever. A theist who claims there is at least one God is logically noted by BP. B, not P would logically entail BP, not BP. Well, basically, we've done this a million times. Like, you believe there's no gods, you don't have a belief. Okay, great. This would means that an atheist who believes there no gods exist does not believe gods exist. Stop there to make sure this makes sense to you. If a person says there are no gods, it just follows they do not believe, or do they not have a God belief, so they don't believe gods exist. Very simple. If you don't believe it's going to rain tomorrow, if you believe it's not going to rain tomorrow, you are missing the belief that it's going to rain tomorrow.
Right. If it rains, you were still wrong.
You're just wrong.
Right?
Correct. Beliefs can be wrong. Knowledge cannot be wrong. I wrote one of my blogs called The Principle of Attribution and Retraction off something that Ozzy did a long time ago. And it was basically, look, if I say it's going to rain tomorrow and it comes about tomorrow and it doesn't rain, I say I had a false belief. My belief was wrong, right?
Right.
But if I tell you, I know it's going to rain tomorrow, tomorrow comes along and it doesn't rain, I don't say I had false knowledge, because knowledge must be always true. What I say is I was incorrect about my claim about having knowledge. Right? I retract that claim. It's not that my claim is not just me, the knowledge was wrong, right? I don't say I had a false knowledge, like I false belief. I say I had a false belief, but then my claim to knowledge was incorrect. Did you see the distinction there?
Yeah, I mean, it's belief versus facts. And
Yeah.
maybe that's where they get so offended. Like, well, I wasn't wrong. I mean, and where the whole faith thing comes in. Faith. I just have faith that it's gonna, or it won't rain tomorrow. And then it rains.
Yeah, but your faith was wrong.
My faith was wrong, regardless of,
your faith can be
anything.
wrong, your beliefs can be wrong. Knowledge, by definition, in epistemology, must be true. It has to be
if
true.
it rains, you're wrong.
You never heard anybody say, "Hey, my knowledge was wrong." No, it doesn't make sense to say that. It's a condition. It's a necessary condition for knowledge in any kind of belief first to be true. So, okay. So the logic works this way. If someone just holds to not be P and does not hold to not be not P, the only other option is they hold to not be not whatever. We've all known that another time. But basically, they're just saying, look, if you just hold a lack of belief and you don't hold a positive belief, you're agnostic on it. You have no position either way, right? And this just follows. You don't have to understand what the hell any of this means. You just look, this and this. So if you hold to this, but you don't hold to this, you hold to not BP. So it's just saying this, and you're negating that, and you get this. That's it.
But it's belief and positive, or
if you don't have the positive belief, what
Okay.
this is saying is, if you don't have the belief that P is true, which is this, and you don't have this, that means you're negating this. You don't have this particular belief. That's represented this way, right? So the way you would read this is, I do not believe that P is false. If you want to put an indexical on, again, whatever.
Okay. Perfect.
And
Thank
I only
you.
throw it out there because I do know that usually you'd have to put in some kind of I believe or S believes or agent believes, but we're keeping it simple.
Yeah, let's keep it simple.
All right, so this would be read as, I do not believe P is true, and I do not believe P is false. What do we call that? Fence sitting.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the middle.
Yeah,
You don't know.
Which means they do not believe a God exists, and they do not believe a God does not exist. I got to change that too. So 4 things I have my mind to fix. All this is happening here. We are negating BP, right? So if I have this and I have the negation of that, you don't believe it either way, right? So anyway, so I've enumerated it very simple. At least one God exists. The negation of that is not the case that God exists. That's very simple, right? If this is my proposition that at least one God exists, the negation of that, you just throw in, it is not the case, right? So it is not the case that God exists. Gives you the negation of that proposition. Now, if I don't believe that proposition, it is, I do not believe that at least one God exists, right? So, and I did this for a reason, to make sure that people can throw these in there. So at least one.
Yeah, so we can use the formula. Yeah.
Exactly. So there you go. Now, B not P would be, I believe it is not the case that at least one God exists. Makes sense, right? Because I believe.
Yeah. Right.
And then you end up with, I believe, not P. I do not believe it is not the case that God exists. And by the way, this is not a double negation. I had that discussion in the Great Debate community the other day. We had a vote. I put it for a poll, and overwhelmingly, like 3-1, 4-1, people had said, yeah, that's not a double negation. It's not, because one negation is on the predicate, one is on the propositional content. So it's like saying, look, I don't believe it's not going to rain tomorrow. It may rain tomorrow, but I don't have a belief that it's not. I'm not saying that it is going to rain tomorrow. I'm just saying that I don't have a belief that it's not going to rain tomorrow.
Right.
Big difference. It's not a double negation.
Yeah, you're not predicting. You're just saying I don't think it will.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
It may.
But it may. I don't think it is, and I don't think it's not. I have no position on whether it's going to rain tomorrow or not. Now, maybe I looked at the weather report. Maybe it told me it's not going to rain tomorrow. Okay, you know what? I believe it's not going to rain tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow it doesn't rain. I got my belief was wrong. The weatherman gave me bad information,
But can I ask you a question? Can I just read this comment really quick? Yeah. Okay, so Rosa Barks says, what people who don't believe in God call themselves is literally not an issue. But
what people don't believe in God call themselves. Well, I don't understand
what people who don't believe in God call themselves is not an issue.
Yeah, they can call themselves anything they want. That's just a descriptor. So yeah.
Yeah, but it seems to be an issue for theists. So if we, I don't know, maybe I'm reading into that too
Yeah,
much.
no, I mean,
but
people, here's, again, going back to my blog, people have a right to call themselves anything they want.
yeah,
right?
anything that, right. Mm-hmm.
But don't take it outside your group, right? I mean, if a younger creationist wants to say, look, evolution is a theory means guess, therefore evolution is just a guess, and we're using species as kind and all that other stuff. Okay, they can do that within their group. I'm not in those groups, but I mean, they can't then say, look, when a scientist says, talking about a species, they go like, well, no, that scientist means kind. You can't do that, right? It doesn't work that way. And that's what I see with the lack of belief atheists do. Oh, Steve's using these terms incorrectly. No, I'm using them in a different way that you would find if you want to go read the stuff in the literature, right? I mean, I've even asked a person, go find me a paper that uses the terminology that you're using. Well, it doesn't matter because is all the literature out there is written by theists. Really? So Dr. Draper's a theist? No. Dr. McCormick's a theist? No. It's bizarre, right? Is that they have this weird conspiratorial type things, and goes on the whole.
Yeah,
why it's very much like flat Earth and young Earth creationists. They think that philosophy is dominated by theists, and it's like, no, it's not.
Conspiracies. Okay, so Jamie Russell says, can a false belief be a justified false belief without a lie being involved?
Yes. I believe you can have a justified false belief. You're just wrong, but you were justified at the time to believe it. Justification is a rational reason why you hold something, but we might find out that yes, your belief is wrong, but it was justified.
You have a justified false belief, so
you can't have a justified true belief.
It's not proving a negative, but
you can't have a justified true knowledge, right? You can't have knowledge that is justified true, and a belief is a condition for knowledge. So if you have knowledge, that can't be false. It can be unjustified, but it can't be false.
Okay, right. No, got it. Yeah, if you have the knowledge, then you could say it. Yeah, it does or does not. Okay.
There are other theories out there that allow for knowledge to happen without justification, like reliabilism and some semantic type theories. But for every one of them that I've seen, one of the conditions for knowledge must be that it's true. Is a lie required? That makes sense. I don't know what lie would be a lie. If you have to justify something by lying, that gets into ethical questions. Was I how do you lie? How do you force yourself to believe a lie?
And that's the thing that's what I struggle with. I mean, I guess if you're indoctrinated and there is a cult that's, secluding you and you're being indoctrinated, but otherwise you can't innately believe something that you just don't.
Yeah.
That's how I feel anyway. I don't know. Plashaga, am I saying that right?
I think so.
100, and I don't know what that currency is.
That's sex.
What is it?
Sex. That's what it's pronounced. Sex. That is a Swedish Europe krona or something. I think it is. Stands for.
So my entire family line are atheists. We always donate our Christian holiday money to charity. We live in Scandinavian country, 200 kilometers north of Arctic Circle. Good, and you probably don't. Blast it all over the place. Yeah. I think that's.
Yeah, and look, I have no issue with that. A lot of atheists are called friendly atheists, where there are great Christian organizations out there that do a wonderful job, in feeding people and I have an issue when they basically say, hey, look, if you want a sandwich, read the Bible. Here's a Bible. I got a problem with that. I mean, it's better than nothing. Don't get me wrong. So, I mean, if we had levels of, hey, we either starve to death or not, but I think it's a really kind of a. Look, I'm a Christian, supposedly, if I put on the Christian hat. I'm a Christian, but I'm going to let you starve because you didn't read the Bible. That's not what?
It's a motive thing, too. Yeah. Where are they coming from? What do they want? I mean, I've never understood, besides what it says in the Bible or whatever, whatever book you're looking at, that you're supposed to go out and espouse whatever is in there and convert people. I don't understand the obsession with pushing it on other people. I've never understood that.
I don't either, because a lot of times they don't seem to understand some of the logical and semantic issues that come along with it, and they don't address it.
Where you're born. I'll give you a quick example. I mean,
another viewer says, and this is her name, another viewer, knowledge is a subset of belief. That is correct. Which is why agnostic, weak atheist, and Gnostic, strong atheist are more complete terms to use. But they don't seem to realize that schema, that multi-axial schema where you have belief and knowledge, doesn't exist anywhere in philosophy. for the most part. That came up. That schema came about, from what I understand, in a Usenet
when
group.
we didn't know.
No, it
okay.
came up in a Usenet group in 2005 by some people that just threw it out there. There's issues with that type of schema. It doesn't work. It is a logically inconsistent system because there's no way to formulate that system that leaves no ambiguity. It's always going to be ambiguity in that system. It makes no sense. I have a whole thing on the logical ambiguity of agnostic atheism. It makes no sense from the outside. I don't know any epistemologic person that ever uses that system besides Bart Ehrman. But Bart Ehrman makes it very clear what he means by it. And one of these days I'll have that discussion with Dr. Ehrman. But, you know, he's the only person I know that uses that system. And he's not an epistemologist, by the way. So I don't know any epistemologist that would ever use that multi-axial system because there are issues with it. Matter of fact, Matt Dillahunty himself has said, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, and I've asked about this when we were actually on speaking terms, he holds that agnostic atheism in the weak case, meaning lack of belief atheism, is nonsensical. He's absolutely right. So anyways, Mark Ortiz says, I'll read this one. Steve is what I would call an atheist, but he prefers agnostic, I think. Okay, well, I mean, I'm according to his schema, I'm agnostic, but he can say that anybody who lacks belief is a dog, therefore I'm a dog, right? Think about that, Mike. If you said, look, according to my definitions, if you lack a belief, you're a dog. Steve's a dog. Okay, great, I'm a dog. But that's semantics, right? That doesn't really tell me anything.
Yeah, that's how I feel a lot of this is.
But he prefers agnostic, and there's nothing wrong with that. He can call himself Luca on the second floor for all I care. And that's great. I appreciate that. But Mike, you got to understand, they're not just saying that on these communities. They're saying Steve cannot be what he's claiming to be. He has to be either atheist or theist. There are no other logical options because they don't understand that their schema is isolated. It's insulated. It is their own schema that they've came up with that is not what I call normative, meaning if you want to go read something, you ought to use these terms only because it would make sense. They don't realize that is found outside their little echo chambers. They've been indoctrinated.
Yeah,
they've been brainwashed.
That's what a lot of it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they're used to hearing, the same feedback that they're putting out in their own voice. Have you debated any of these people or had a conversation? I should say.
I've had Matt on the show when we were on speaking terms, and I've had Manny with Arn when we were on speaking terms. But they're just like David Smalley; they get this thing in their head.
Yeah,
and they won't let go because it's conflicting with other things they believe. Arn once told me, "Hey, look, Steve,
that's
if you're
what
right,
it is. Right.
Yeah, if you said if you're right, then my entire life's work is for naught." I'm like, why? Because logic doesn't work the way you think it is. I mean, he thought that not B, not P was a double negation. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So let me finish this and I got some other questions. So now, if a person holds to not be P but fails to hold to B, not P, they hold to not B, not B, not P, which is logically agnostic position. Again, we've already seen the diagrams for this. Everybody knows this. Then they're fenced in between BP and not B, not P. And so all it is this. This is the believes. It boils down to this, as simple as that. Believes P. God believes that God exists. D not P believes God does not exist. Here's the agnostic that has neither position. That's also the weak atheist. It's also the weak theist position, which, by the way, must exist because it's called a subcontrary. Where both of them cannot be false, but both can be true, and it has to exist, right? So if you have not BP, you also have to have not B, not P, because if you have a proposition, you have to have the negation. So this position here is also weak atheism, weak theism, and agnosticism, which I've proven in another thing on one of my blogs. That's fence sitting. I don't know what else to tell people on it. They may not like the term, okay, but hey, look, that's what it is. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's more about the term. I hate to be so simplistic about everything because I'm obviously not as well versed as you all are, but I do appreciate the education. And I really do feel like it has more to do with ruining someone's, something they've worked hard on or being labeled as, sitting on the fence. I think it's more about, an ego, someone's ego being hurt. More so than the argument itself. It's not personal.
Absolutely.
We're just saying this is this and this is that. Now, which do you choose?
If people find legit issues with my arguments, right? And I'm not talking about
you would succumb to that. You would say,
like,
okay,
oh shit, you know what? I got to fix this. I got to shore up. Is it salvageable? Like Matt Slick's argument for tag argument when Malpass was talking, it was not salvageable. It was done. I mean, Malpass was like, look, this is dead on arrival. There's no way to salvage this argument, right? But other things you might be able to salvage by changing a thing. They're a little bit like this. And if somebody gives me some, tips, I'll incorporate them. But that's as you said, I think that they don't want to recognize that these are good arguments, and more people that are recognizing they're good arguments are using them, and that's scaring the hell out of them.
Scary, yeah, because then they have to change everything that they've worked on for however many years, and that may be kind of what you were faced with the smiley.
It's kind of what religious people have to go through when hey, look,
Sure,
I'm being told something that goes against what my pastor tells me. What do I do? And
what is life? Like everything crumbles at that point.
It's the same exact thing. This is why, though, a lot of atheists are just not dealing with that side of the communities any longer. They realize that, hey, look, we're not being told stuff, and Steve is telling me things that I can go objectively look. And I'm not the only one. Answers in Reason, great blog, with Joe and Trolley Dave, who's working on his PhD in philosophy. Great blog. They've been saying these same things for quite a while. So I'm not the only one. There are people out there that do understand these things. The Intrigued Feline, she's got this down to an art form. But let me take this question real quick. So another viewer says this, and I'll give them the challenge. Agnostic atheist, also known as a weak atheist, which, again, I don't know where you get that from. But
wait, who's writing this? Who are you reading?
Another viewer. There's the name.
Oh, another viewer. Oh, yeah, that's the trick. Okay, go ahead.
So I don't know what they mean by agnostic atheist is also weak atheist, but we'll just go with that. Does not know that there is or not a God, but due to a lack of sufficient strong evidence, lacks a belief in any gods. My challenge to them is to write agnostic atheist in a way that's logical, like I have here, in a way that's not ambiguous.
Okay.
That's my challenge to them, and see what they come up with. And the reason for that is that first, you have to determine whether you're dealing with a single proposition. Are you just dealing with saying that I know God exists, or I believe God exists, or I'm not saying that I know God exists? And by the way, no, come up with a logical format that's not ambiguous, superfluous, or nonsensical, or were my conditions before.
Right. Fair.
The reason being is if I have multiple propositions, like, oh, I'm saying that I'm a Gnostic atheist because I say gods are not knowable, but I don't believe in any. Then you're dealing with two propositions. And at that point, it's like saying, okay, I don't believe there's a God, but I'm agnostic on the proposition if aliens exist. Therefore, I'm an agnostic atheist. You have two completely different propositions.
Break it down.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing. They have two completely different propositions, P and Q. One's about their belief about God existing. The other one's about the knowability of God. Those are two different propositions. So they have to decide whether they're dealing with two propositions, or they have to decide whether they're saying, well, I believe there's a God, but I'm not saying that I know there's a God, which is just atheism. So yeah, good luck on coming up with a non-ambiguous, repetitive or superlative or redundant. Because they all are. This is why Matt has even said, how do you like, for example, if you have agnostic atheist, how do you have an epistemic modifier? This is my words, not his, but how do you have an epistemic modifier when you don't have a dosastic position? And he would word it as, if you merely lack a belief, you cannot then put a word like agnostic ahead of it, because you have to have a belief first, because knowledge is a subset of belief. That's the way Matt Dillahunty would word it. And he says that particular word combination doesn't make any sense. Those are his exact words. And he's right on that. It only makes agnostic atheist would only make sense if you really want to do like Steelman. It would only make sense if you're dealing with positive atheism, strong atheism.
Okay, but give me an example of that. How can you be both?
So if I say to you, Heather, I believe there are no gods, right? That's a positive position. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to put the agnostic modifier on there, and I'm going to mean it not as we've been using it as no position either way. I'm going to take a different sense of the word, and I'm going to use it as I'm not claiming it as knowledge, which is merely this anyways. An atheist is not making any knowledge claims anyways, so it's superfluous.
Yeah.
But let's say I have the word Gnostic with a G, Gnostic atheist.
Right, Gnostic. Mm-hmm.
Which, again, I'm not a fan of this, but again, steel manning. If I say I'm a Gnostic atheist, what that person is saying is, I believe there are no gods, and I'm also claiming I know there are no gods. That is logically fine. That is not nonsensical.
Is it though? I mean, but how can any of us know that?
It's irrelevant. Your justification is irrelevant.
Okay. Yeah. So using the models that we have.
You got to remember, knowledge is a subset of belief. And so if I have the belief condition first, but I'm also not just saying I believe it, but I know it, then that makes sense.
Based
It's
on,
logically
okay.
consistent, right?
Okay.
But if I told you, hey, look, I know God exists, but I don't believe it, that is logically inconsistent because you have to have knowledge first.
Right.
So you got to look at it these particular ways. And once you start doing this, it becomes second nature to you.
Oh yeah, it becomes second nature. That's what I need to do. Immerse myself in this. But it's so fascinating. I mean, all of it is. Yeah, there's some let's see. I don't know. What do you want to read here?
I don't know.
Any of these
Girl,
comments?
pick something.
You guys,
It's going by too fast, and so I can't
so
keep up
over
with
my
it.
head. Thank you guys for being patient with me. I mean, I love this stuff, but man, it's you guys are so
Most of my
much
audience
more
has been through
knowledge.
this a million times, but I wanted to go over this particular argument with them because I trust them to attack it. Right? They're going to be like, "Hey,
good.
Steve, I think you got an error here. This is what I want. I want
Yeah.
my peeps to go. Yeah,
That's a good sign.
You got a problem here,
That's a
and not
good
just the
sign,
four
yeah.
grammatical errors. I'm going to go back in and fix those afterwards, but I got them down.
I
But,
love that it bothers you. Yeah, that's good.
the grammatic. Yeah, it does. But I want to know if the argument's good, and if the people that I trust, that I really think really do understand these things, if they can't find a problem with it, then I've kind of like solidified it and shored anything up that could have been had they given to me something. So
You're encouraging him, you guys.
I know.
You got a
See what he's doing to
question?
me?
Let's see.
I'm still waiting for Steve to do a precept debate with Side 10. That's already happened a few times on Non Sequitur show. We've already done that a few times. Here's the thing with Side 10. He knows I know his script.
Wait. What's Side 10 and what are you talking about?
Side 10 Peronicate. He's a presuppositional apologist. He starts with the position that everybody knows God. God must exist for intelligibility. God must exist for the laws of logic. He's a precept script person.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, I mean, I know his game, and I happen to get along with the guy really well.
Is it a game?
Well, I think precept is a game. The reason being, there's a different types of presuppositionalism or presuppositional argument apologetics, and there's different styles. There's Van Til, there's Bahnsen, there's who's the other guy? But it doesn't matter. But he goes by the Bahnsen style, and Greg Bahnsen had basically said, the reason why we do presuppositional apologetics is to shut the mouth of the non-believer. It's not for any kind of dialectic. It's not to come to any kind of truth. It's not to even have a conversation. It is to confuse the atheist so bad that they just shut up.
Succumb to whatever
It's a game.
Yeah.
And so presuppositional argumentation is dishonest. It's not even sophistry. It is just straight up dishonest argumentation. Many of us know those tricks because we've been around a very long time. And yes, I know his game. He won't do it again. He'll come on and talk and we'll play around, but he won't do anything formal because he knows.
Does that ever go anywhere? I mean, do you guys
No.
ever change anyone's mind?
Well, not his.
Not that they admit. Perhaps you
He's
influence them.
He's a true believer. You got. I try to put myself in their shoes. Is this person an honest person? As if they do believe what they believe? Yes, he actually believes it. I think he's totally dishonest in his argumentation, and I think he knows that, but I think he's confident enough to say in his own mind, he may not admit this, and he's never admitted it to me, but I think that he might go, yeah, you know what? It's okay to play these little bullshit games because in the end, it gets more people to God.
That's unfortunate.
That again, I'm not trying to attribute that to him. He's never told me anything like that, but it just seems reasonable because I know, I truly believe very strongly that he really does believe what he says, right? He's not a Poe. I really think that he has these convictions. He's convinced himself that God must exist. There is no other possibility, right?
Okay, well, science. Okay, so an intrigued feline, she wanted to ask this question, so I'm going to bring it up. I had a question earlier. Okay, so she says you'll know what I'm talking about here, whether the JFB, he knows, has to do with Gettier problems. Gettier. Okay. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
By the
And
way,
what's the answer?
Yeah, we had a super chat in a second. Let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm getting inundated with messages. Who's messaging me? Oh, okay. So the Gettier problems, basically, Gettier was trying to show that justified true belief has certain conditions that, because of what's called epistemic luck, would not be constitutive of knowledge. And so there's certain problems he came up with that showed some problems with the justified true belief system. And That's fine. I think he had a point. But then they came up with what's called Justified True Belief Plus, which they added an additional condition called a truth tracking condition, which dealt with possible world theory. One of them was called sensitivity. The other is called safety. Very, very complicated. Not going to get into it because I'm not even going to say that I even understand it fully myself. Sensitivity I get more than safety. Safety still confuses me a little bit, but because it has to do with if the agent would believe the proposition was true if they were in the next possible world over to us. But there's also reliabilism that says, okay, well, knowledge is not based upon justification. It's based upon reliability, right? But then there's issues against that as well. Dr. Lindsay Zabesky, I love her, brilliant epistemologist, came up with the swamping problem. And she basically said, look, if we're going to define knowledge as terms of reliability, if I have an espresso maker that makes good coffee, and I have two of them, right? They both make the same good coffee. One's reliable, one's not. But if they both made me that good cup of coffee, is there any value to be had to say that this particular coffee maker is any better than this one when both gave me good coffee? There's no value added in that particular instance.
Maybe not that situation.
Yeah. So anyways, I think there's always going to be a problem with any system you pick. I don't think there's any one foolproof system. But yeah, she's talking about the Gideon Problems, which show that there are, if I may not have been somebody who actually had knowledge. I might have thought I did, but I really wasn't justified. If I say, for example, a Gideon Problem is very similar to like, look, I got up this morning. I looked at my clock. My clock said 6 a.m. I went to work and I said, hey, look, I know it's 6 a.m. I'm going to work. I come home. I find out that my clock was off. I found out my clock was broken. It was stuck at 6 a.m., right? So I went to work at 6 a.m. I went the whole day thinking my clock told me an accurate time, and I know that it was 6 a.m. But the problem is you didn't know it was 6 a.m. because the clock was broken. You just got lucky. It was epistemic luck. Yeah. And so you thought you had justification, but you didn't because that clock was broken and you just got lucky. That's one of the Gideon types of problems. But anyways, way off tangent here.
No, I appreciate it though. That's interesting. Sorry to keep you guys all know this stuff. So it's like, to go over it again, but it is so interesting.
Yeah, Feline keeps me on my toes, keeps me honest.
She does, man. She's a smart cookie. Yeah. I don't know. Do you see question? Let's see. Go ahead.
Flashiga, 100 more sex. Steve, why even bother? Dude, good question. Look, my best answer for that is the amount of messages I get thanking me. I'm just that's why I guess I look. I could have been probably a lot bigger on YouTube had I sucked up to the right people and kissed ass. I'm not going to be like that. I believe that once you start going down and selling your soul to be beholden to certain groups, you hobble yourself, at least ethically so. And I'm not going to do that. And so why do I do it? Because I want people to learn this stuff, and I want people to be better critical thinkers. Because I think in the long run, those people are the ones that vote, and those people are the ones that make the bigger difference.
I love that. I absolutely love that. That's exactly the right answer, I think. That's my opinion.
And plus, occasionally I get super chats out of it. And occasionally I get people joining membership of the channel and people coming on Patreon, which is in the video description. So if you like this stuff, become a member. I do this full time. I mean, literally, all my income is from YouTube. So but again, I started doing this 8 years ago and I wasn't monetized for the first 4 years. So it wasn't such a thing, kind of thing. So, I mean, I'd be doing this anyways.
Yeah.
But, let's see, what else we got? What other customers we got? Claire Bear says, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Claire. She's so nice. Is she? I mean, you know her better than I do. Is she really that nice? I mean,
let me tell you about Claire. So she's been in your community for quite a while. You guys she's very good at staying, but man, that girl, you could tell her anything and that shit's going to the grave. So she's very trustworthy and she's a very dear one of mine. So I'm glad we had that.
First time I ever talked to her was yesterday. I know she's been around the community for a very long time. But I put my faith and trust in you, and you
I
tell me you
appreciate
trust somebody
that.
else, and it's there's a transitivity there. Now, granted, we
Sure.
all can mess up. We all can put our faith in the wrong person. I get that, but you can't
Right.
go through your life just not trusting, your friends
No,
to have the right decisions.
I appreciate you even saying that. And, as I always say, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior,
I
and
agree.
hers just is a good record. So, um, yeah, I appreciate that. She's amazing. And thank you for letting me come on here. I mean, this stuff's so interesting. I wish I didn't have to focus so much on what is being said. I need to study more. That's what I need to do. But I
Well,
do appreciate you guys' patience.
if you want to learn philosophy kind of thing, I'll send you some things. But like Cheshire, just say it kind of had like a natural intuition for this stuff.
Oh yeah, she's that girl's so damn smart.
Yeah.
My major was sociology, so though I'm interested in this stuff, it just doesn't come super easily. But yeah. But okay, so you got to the end of this. You want to read more questions, or what do you want to
Yeah,
do?
what do you guys got? I mean, I look,
Yeah.
in theory, I could give you guys a number to call in if you want. It does mess my layout up.
That would
but
be
I can
fun.
fix it,
No,
but, we could do that for a few. How long have we been going here?
that'd be fun.
We
Roast me, you
90
guys.
minutes, right? 90 minutes is what we've been going for?
Let's see, we started at 12:30. Yeah.
All right. So I will put the, if you guys want to come in, it is a phone call. And so it does hide the number from what I understand. We've done this before. So I have the number here and here. Okay. So you can actually call in and ask questions. And then
So fun.
I like it this way because you can easily hang up on somebody and it doesn't, they can't do anything harmful. So
Scary, but it's exciting. Love to hear it.
all right. So Kawasa, you want to read that one? Hi, Kino.
Yes. Oh yeah. Okay. So what do you think of that? Yeah, you're right, Steve. But you can't try to do more nice and coax them instead of hurt their feelings. Coddle arguments. So
Not really. Look,
Yeah,
we
you're
all have
right,
our
but-
style, right? I'm just going to be that a-holy pope of agnosticism. That's how I am most of the time. If
it's not your job to tell people, to sort of make it easily spoon-fed. I mean, educating people is good enough. Your argument doesn't have. It's sad that people expect you to be more nice about it. If you're laughing,
there's other people that are nice about it, right? If you want nice, go. There's 1,000 people that can probably do the same thing, and they're nice about it. That's great, but they may not be effective in other ways, right? So it takes a village. I really believe that it takes a village, and so everybody has their own approach. No one size fits all. I reach a certain amount of people that other people wouldn't, and they reach a certain amount of people that I wouldn't. I get it. Mad Rabbit. You want to read Mad Rabbit? Because I like that comment too.
Yes, I do. When I give. Oh yeah, I'm an atheist, by the way. No, that can't be it. Where is he before that? Oh, here he goes. Okay.
As much as
All right. So Steve, as much as you can piss me off sometimes, you're absolutely correct. We're not reading this comment. In fact, you actually helped me to formalize my position.
Thank you.
That's the goal, isn't it?
And again, be mad all you want, but I think the funniest thing is where's people really being mad. I think it's kind of being displaced is because I've had people tell me, look, I came out of religion, I got lied to by young earth creationists, and then I'm feeling fine. I'm lied by Matt Dillahunty and the Atheist Experience, by lying to me and not telling me, any of this stuff is even out there, and just poo-pooing it away. And it's like I'm serious. I've had people, they're not happy with that. There's been people have told me I'm causing a schism in the atheist community by what? Telling them facts, telling them if you go take a course in this stuff, this is what you would be taught and how you would have to learn to pass a course. That's causing a schism. If I'm sorry, but look, the reality is if facts destroy your beliefs, and those beliefs aren't worth having.
Yeah, the issue isn't with the fact. It's more about them. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, and I'm telling you, I do believe that, if these truths are something that are so, triggering to people, then those beliefs they're worth being, just destroyed.
It's worth being destroyed.
Yeah.
You got to start over. Oh, your whole career is based on lies. Okay, fine, but wouldn't you rather, feel it in your gut that you believe it? I mean, it just is. Yeah, it's sort of sad. Did you put the phone number up, or
Yeah.
can people call?
People can call. Nobody's taking.
Oh, yeah, I see it on there. Okay, come on, you guys, call. It'd be fun to get questions.
People are people. I don't know what it is. People are really scared to call in. They're calling to all like to talk heathens and those kind of shows. But they do.
I mean, there's no face. There's no face or anything identifying,
No,
right?
there's
So
no.
they could
There's no face. There's nothing like that. But I think a lot of people they call into those shows to kind of get a theist will call in, right, and they'll get a lot of pushback. Here, most people kind of agree with me, and so most of my audience.
It'd be nice to have an
yeah,
it'd be nice to have a different side of things.
All right, so how about we ask this? When it comes to this particular argument that we had talked about, the fence sitting, right? So I just came up with the lack of belief atheism fence sitting argument. I'm not very creative when it comes to that. So
no, it's perfect.
On that particular argument, I want to see in the audience, press 1 if you think it's a valid, sound, good argument. 2 if you don't, and then explain why you don't. Explain to me what you don't think is. And I'm not trying to say this is valid as in logically, formally deductive. I'm not trying to claim that. But if you just think 1 it's a good argument, and 2 if you don't think it's a good argument and there's problems with it, and then tell me why. So I'm going to start us off 1 because I think it's a really good argument. If you, I tell you what, well, a little incentive. If you can show that there give me a good reason why it's wrong and it's not salvageable, Heather will twerk.
Yeah, listen, I got nothing behind on the. Yeah, let's just. This is a PG channel going on here. I'm not twerking. I can guarantee you that. But
how about I'll twerk?
Okay.
How about I'll twerk? Is that fair?
Yeah, I want to see that. We need more donations.
And by the way, no, you don't. All right, let me go through here.
Sorry, my teenagers.
I'm
twerking.
I have you to read because it's so much easier for you to read than me.
I know it's difficult. I know it's hard to follow.
Even my glasses, it's so small on the screen. The way my distance from my screen.
I'd call, but we don't fundamentally disagree on your core point.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a boring call. So what? I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've said before. Most people call. Mike says 2-ish. Well, what's the ish then? If a person says I don't have a position either way, then how are they not fence sitting then?
I mean, I guess you could say that I don't know. I guess you have to be one or the other, actually. Yeah. Twerking can be sent to my DMs. Oh, you guys are so funny. The physical universe cannot exist without a necessary eternal creator.
Oh, that's on Tangelo. He's kind of harmless, but he's just straight up just throws things out there.
That's okay. I mean, why don't you call in and explain it? No one's going to beat you up.
I couldn't handle talking to on Tangelo.
Okay, so
he's fine in the live chat and do his thing.
Okay,
but it's I might as well just talk to a brick.
Yeah,
I'm not interested. There's certain people they're not like he's not like a troll or anything. Although he's been banned from Facebook on so many different accounts, it's ridiculous.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. But he's been around the circuit for a very long time. It's just I think it's a very. I have no intention. You can imagine like you talking to like a flat earther right now. Why bother? It's just nothing I have no interest in.
He's the local.
It's all assertions,
preacher.
God must exist.
That's very flattering. You know what? That's actually very flattering that they would come. Perhaps they're trying to educate themselves better and spread that word instead of.
Yeah, I mean, when somebody says, "Look, God must exist," okay, well, I mean, look, those kind of there's 1,000 other shows out there to run those kind of arguments with, like the talk heathens and those guys love that kind of stuff. They eat it up. I'm not interested in that. My channel's not to really have discussions whether God exists or not. I don't care. I'm an atheist when it comes to that. I would like to know for myself, but never going to have it's a non-productive dialogue. These are objective dialogues, right? This is objective, whether this is
I think so.
Valid or something that makes sense. Those are kind of I don't think there's much subjectivity there because look, it's in between. That's not subjectivity. That's objective. That is this is between this. You can go look.
Where are you? Yeah, exactly. It's the rules. Here are the rules. Now, what's your position, or at least argue it? I mean, you can't be both. I mean, the fence sitting thing. I I can't see an argument with that.
Thank you.
That's why, in my opinion, I feel like it's more about some personal, I don't know, whatever they have going on, that they're just offended by the term.
I think you're right. Mike Ortiz says,
The definition.
Talk Heathen is done with Artangelo too. Go figure.
That's funny. Who was that? Who said that? Brother Marks? Oh no.
Mike Ortiz said Talk Heathen is done with Mike or Tangelo too. Then Ian Charter says you should invite Tangelo on to talk to you, and one day I will. I might. This is not the episode for that though.
You guys, no one's gonna call in. All right.
And what is it? What is your eye? You scare them off, man. I don't know what the hell it is.
You guys, I'm the one who's scared. You guys know so much more than I do. Thanks for even like putting up with me. I don't even know. It's so fascinating.
Uriah makes a good point, and Uriah Christensen has been around. He's been around from day one from the Great Debate community, and he knows logic. By the way, he says I think atheists that get triggered when you say they're fence sitters are actually hard atheists hiding behind atheism, and I absolutely agree with you on that. By the way, we've seen that over the last 6, 7, whatever years. That when you have, this is what I'm saying, when you have a cognitive dissonance or you have conflicting positions in your head, if I told you, Heather, hey, look, you think all gods are not BS, or you believe there are no gods, and then I say you're a fence sitter, and you're like, well, I'm not a fence sitter, it's because you're not. But then if you say, look, I just lack a belief, and I say you're a fence sitter, and you're like, well, I'm not a fence sitter. I'm like, well, you are the way you're describing it, right?
Yeah, the way it's being described by the person. Yeah,
absolutely, because you're misleading people on your position, because then you're not just lacking belief. You have a positive epistemic status. That's why they get upset. That's what Uriah Christensen's saying, and I agree with him. But anyways, we do have somebody who called in. What you got for us? Hello, caller.
Am I actually on?
Yes.
You are.
Hi. Hello, this is Mike Ortiz.
Oh, awesome.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Cool.
Mike, what up, my buddy?
Hey. So the reason, first of all, you are not wrong. So I do ascribe to the lack theist definition, but in the context in which I mean it, well, we've said this a million times. In the context in which I mean it, you already stated you don't disagree, and I've already stated you're not wrong, because I'm going to say you can't be wrong because there's no wiggle room there. Mm-hmm. The thing is, the reason that they might take offense to the phrase of fence sitting is because the point, the reason for all of this is completely different in the context of, and this is what's been stated a lot of times, the point is, the reason they do this is because they're trying to reduce the amount of political power in America that religious groups have in dictating laws and societal norms. That's the aim. And because of that, they're trying to increase and maximize the political power by having as wide a net cast as possible, and by basically just, the point is to decrease the ability to have which if you'd call it a Judeo-Christian norm imposed as this is what laws should be.
Okay.
And therefore, that's the fence that they're not sitting on.
Yeah. Okay, so let me give you two things on that. And by the way, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right as well, by the way, because I even said that earlier on. But let me give you two things on that. One, then they need to be more honest and open about that, right? Because I agree with you. That's what it is, all right? That is utility argument. I've had this discussion a million times and say, look, this is what genetically modified skeptic would argue. And there's a whole argument to be had about that utility. Whole argument to be had about that, right? And I'm fine if they go down that route. But what I find is that these groups hide that fact, right? And they don't like it. And the second point is, when I had brought this up before, pretty much almost exactly what you have said verbatim for the most part, I was told I am a conspiratorial theist that is just, misrepresenting atheism. I'm not even kidding. I've had people tell me, because I've had these discussions for how long on Discord and Facebook and other places. So I'm not going to go hunt for them, but people have told me, oh, well, that's conspiratorial. That's all for political reasons. And I'll tell them, go look, read David Silverman's book, Finding God. Read George Smith's book, Atheism, A Case Against God. These were all that's what they were doing. They were for political reasons. And then they tell me, Steve, you sound like a nutter. What? This is what they wanted. This was the atheist movement back in the 70s.
The only thing I could say to that is, and I don't know because I didn't see any of this stuff, is that it's possible that it's a random idiot who's saying that, and they're not really representing any real thought. They're not representing any kind of mindset or groupthink in that. It's just some idiot saying something.
Yeah, no,
like
I'm
on
not
Twitter,
gonna
people
disagree
say
with that.
Steve is a lizard guy, and you're like, well, okay, here's what some idiot thinks, but that doesn't represent anything except this one idiot.
Yeah, no, I think you might have a point on that. And like I said, I understand the utility argument. I understand they want it for demographics, right? And I'm fine with that as long as they're honest about it. When you say, look, I want, just to be non-belief, and fence sitting is fine, just get to the agnostic position merely. And I said this earlier in this stream, I don't know if you were here, but I had said that at least takes them out of the theist camp. So anything that follows out of that, like religiosity in schools or young earth creationism, is done at that point. And I understand that. My argument is at the fact that they have been telling me that I'm wrong. Right? You came in here and said, hey, Steve, you're right, but here's the utility argument from that. And I say, yeah, you're right. We're on the same page. Neither one of us are going to disagree with each other on that because you're honest. Yeah, I'm honest. We put forth the point. My argument is they're not being honest with people because they'll go tell people Steve's logic is wrong. Okay. Really? That would be, yeah. And I've said that so many times. It would be wrong to say that your argument is wrong. I've always said what people who are saying atheism means lack theism, they're saying it in a context for only within their world, and they're using it for a very specific reason. Mm-hmm. In that context, to call you an atheist in that little context is not wrong. Right. No,
it would be wrong to say it's the only context.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. I've said this from day one. Look, in their system, I would be an atheist. Yes, absolutely. But I've also said it's a semantic substitution because you can only get want to get Heather in here in a second. But if you start off with A or not A is always a tautology is true that such that you have to have one or the other, right? If I instantiate that, I only get theist or not theist. That is the best I can get to logically. If I want to call non-theist atheism, they can do that, but then it's semantics. It's not logic at that point, right? I can say theist or dog, not a theist. You're a dog. That's just a disjunctive syllogism. Okay, great. But does that make me an actual dog? No. But if that's their usages, if that's the only options I have, then great. I'm a dog. Yeah. Whatever. That's semantics.
Well,
I don't care.
Then we're getting into our rocks atheist, and I'm like, oh,
exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, and I've actually said, if you're saying an atheist is anything that does not have a belief in God, sure, a rock is an atheist, but that's useless, and so what?
So it's a context thing. So I always want to compartmentalize it that way. In one argument, it may not be so, but contextually, it's different. I mean, with Christians or theists, it makes sense to them. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up, I was going to say, that does bring up one potential counter that I've heard to that thinking, which is a Christian. And like you just said, a Christian could say, well, I'm going to define an atheist as someone who is saying that a God does not exist. And anyone that's not that is a theist by definition. Mm-hmm. In other words, they basically just play the other side of that coin.
Right, exactly. Well,
they're just playing the other side. Yeah.
Well, you've read my weak atheist special pleading argument. Is that not a good argument?
Here's what I would say to that. It is technically correct, and I would go, if you want to say that, and if you want to posit that, I won't disagree, and I would say, fine, I'm a theist. However, don't think that means I'm going to be an advocate for you to get prayer in schools now. Yeah, no, fine. Call me a theist, but I'm going to fight you on prayer in schools.
And what you did is fine. It's called biting the bullet.
What category would they put you in?
What he has done.
They would call me a theist.
They would call him a theist. But he is okay because Mike is being extremely honest right now, and I love this. This is one of the best calls I've had because he's literally saying, "Hey, Steve, your WASP argument is correct. Technically correct is the best kind of correct." But you know what? I'm not going to defeat the argument. I'm just going to kind of sidestep it to say I'm going to bite the bullet on it. Okay, I have no comeback for that. I'm done at that point. I cannot.
Holy shit.
Yeah, what am I going to do? If you say I bite the bullet on this, and yes, I'm a theist, I'm an atheist, I'm agnostic, I'm whatever label you want to fucking put on me. Okay. I mean, there might be some conversations after that, I guess, right? I mean, like, Well,
yeah, because then it would be like you would say, oh, well, does that mean you advocate for prayer in school? And
yeah.
And I would go, well, let's talk.
Yeah.
But and that's why I get frustrated when I'll admit, I get frustrated and I post that in the comments when I see kind of these streams like that, because in my mind, I'm going like, I'm not seeing a conflict here because I'm looking at it from my perspective, and as we just spoken, there's no conflict here. We're both like, okay, cool. We're there's no problems here.
Yeah. And by the way, no, I'm not twerking. Mike didn't assail the argument. He, again, bit the bullet and sidestepped it, which is just fine. I've always said people can do that, but very rarely do they do. But it's perfectly, there's nothing. This is what an honest interlocutor would look like. This is somebody who actually understands it and says, yes, this is what I would do. Okay, great. Where are you going to go with that, right? It's no problem. I got no issue with anything he said. As long as somebody is internally consistent, that's fine. It's when they say, look.
That's why this is a boring call.
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't.
No,
It's not a
not
boring
at
call,
all.
dude. It's like the best I've had, I think, man.
Yeah, this is actually good.
Anyways, we do have another caller, though, so if I want to get in there, you can stick around if you want, Mike, but I want to get the other caller real quick, if that's cool.
Yeah. Do you want me to read a super chat, or you want to do
read
the
the
call?
super chat first, and then we'll get the call.
All right. So Chaga for 100 Sex says atheists are actually at work on the other side of the planet in this case. We are the silent majority. Have your ghost.
I think, look, I think non-belief has gone up quite a bit. And I understand, again, Mike's position and the honest lack of belief atheists out there, like genetically modified skeptic runs the same thing, and I have no problem with the way he puts it. But they are trying to get people to vote in a more secular type way, right? Understand that. I really, really do. And Cheshire has said a million times, I would love to get off first base just to have those kind of discussions about, the importance of the political ramifications of getting some of these religiosities out of the system. I mean, look at like Trump and the evangelist.
100%.
Right? But that is a long discussion that's completely different. But we have to have those discussions. But as I and Cheshire pointed out millions of times, we never get off freaking first base with people.
Yeah.
But now we can because, Mike says, okay, this is this. Now let's talk about the more complex stuff. And maybe the next time we can. And so I thank you for that, Mike.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah. I like that too.
What base are we on, Steve?
Oh, yeah. Hey, look, you got the second base with me. I'm not going to talk about Heather.
There you go.
That's a whole different
thing. He's so
easy.
easy.
Yeah, I'm so easy. Yeah, I don't know who you were trying to get the second base with, but you got it with me, okay? All right, so we got multiple callers in here. So the first person that called in just after Mike, who's that?
It's probably me, Jamie Russell.
Yeah.
Oh, Jamie Russell. Okay.
Hey, what's up?
What you got first, bud?
I just wanted to ask you if why I thought I heard you say you can't believe or you can't choose beliefs. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part. Yeah, for the most part, we can't say I can't will myself to believe I can fly, right? I believe that our kind of our subconscious does all the hard, heavy lifting, and then we kind of recognize it after the fact for the most part. But I do think we make decisions.
Right. Like I used to think that completely was just clearly the case. But have you read Jonathan Haidt or the idea of the rider on the elephant?
It sounds familiar. But go ahead.
Like he says, I could be misunderstanding this, but so bear with me. But it's kind of like everybody assumes that their beliefs are based on like reason and they're being reasonable and using logic, which we all try to do. Mm-hmm. But I think the analogy is there's a rider on the elephant, and the rider is like a small guy up who thinks he's steering this elephant, which is your motivations from life and your emotions just in general. And so in reality, you're going to go wherever the elephant takes you. Mm-hmm. You try to combat that. And I think fake it till you make it actually can be a thing in any subject too. And I think that's actually probably right.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with that. The subconscious is driving your motives, your wants, your needs, your desires, all these intentional states. And eventually there's something called a shut-eye. Ever heard of that term?
I haven't.
Okay, so a shut-eye was like a psychic, right? These psychics who were manipulating people, and I believe all psychics are con men. I believe,
me too.
Yeah.
However, some of them actually because of the way this works, and we'll have a whole episode on these things one of these days because I used to really be really heavy into debunking this stuff, but
please, that'd be great.
But they actually have come to believe their own bullshit, right? They're like, oh, I've had so many hits, and people have told me how great I am. That they have become what's called Orson Welles, I believe, coined the term shut-eyes. That they have convinced themselves they actually have the ability that they start off recognizing was a con. Right? So
yeah, the old chestnut, like you lie to yourself long enough, you start to believe it.
Yes, exactly.
But the other thing that Jonathan Haidt said was that what was it? I kind of blanked, I guess. But anyway.
Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I can't remember what his argument was, but I do like where you're coming from,
Yeah.
as far
I
as
think he's right on that. Again,
well, the part you could see it in politics, right? When for instance, climate science and stuff like that, people, it's like you take the position and then you find the argument. That's what he says.
Yeah.
People just choose on the emotions, and then you can find quote unquote reasonable arguments for either side. And so that's why you kind of, in America, you see these, if things turn political, even though they shouldn't be, let's say.
Yeah.
So
no, I think somebody in the audience, Rosa, said the elephant and the rider analogy doesn't mean the elephant is always in control. It just means it's harder to control. And I think that's probably
right.
Yeah, I think that's nuanced like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a scale or whatever.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take one last call because I want to keep this under 2 hours. So thank you, Russell. Jamie, I appreciate it, man. Always by the fact that you're a member of the channel, and that means a lot. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah,
okay?
I do, man. I appreciate what you're doing.
And I know you've been reaching out to me. I don't always get back to you quickly, and I apologize for that. And by the way,
I understand.
I'm not fronting with people. Discord is the worst way to reach me in the history of mankind. Facebook's the second. If you want to reach me, email or DM me on Twitter. I don't check my Facebook a lot because for some reason my Facebook, and I don't know why this is, but it'll open up in a separate tab for Messenger. You guys have that problem?
I'm gonna tell Ryan.
It's just I don't know. I hate it. I don't like Facebook ways. No, nothing about Facebook. So, and anyway, so I thought I'd point that out to you. All right, buddy. All right,
man. Hey, I appreciate it. Have a good one.
So,
bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So who's the last person that called in, and then we'll get to Intrigued Feline's question.
Yeah, we got
afterwards.
one more and then Intrigued.
What do you got first?
Is it me?
It is you.
It's you.
Okay. Hi, I'm the person you have been communicating with on Facebook, but please don't say my Facebook name.
Okay.
I just joined your channel, and I'm the Dark Side Boomer, Melissa, even though I'm not quite a boomer. At any rate, I'm Melissa. And Steve, I was calling. I couldn't quite hear what your argument was or your statement was that you asked the chat to vote on because you speak so fast.
I do.
The caffeine is hit.
I do.
No,
I'll take that hit. I will totally take that hit. Yes.
Okay. And I'm new, so I don't know all of your arguments by heart. And I was basically calling to address something that Heather said and what you're saying. I'll address that as well. But you also know my background, Steve, so I don't mind. Okay, great. Now, Heather, you had said something about someone who's fiercely Christian, and Steve knows I'm not like that. But Heather, you said science, and you said it kind of as though science and Christianity aren't commensurable. Do you believe that?
I don't know. Yes, I guess I'll be honest, but I'm always open to learning more. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people who are super religious sometimes tend to not want to go the science route. But tell me,
I think you're very right about that.
Okay, good.
Well, I'm willing. No, I think you're. No, I think you're right.
Heather, we're so proud of you. You've come a long way.
I'm like, I just figured, I didn't want to get roasted. Go ahead. Yes.
No, you're not. No.
No.
No, but I'm willing to admit this to chat because I'm never going to shy away from my core beliefs. But I'm a Christian, but I don't follow the King James version of the Bible. I'm more like the kind of Christian who would kick it with Jesus. I'm like a recovering addict, and I'm like one of the people who would be his peeps, Yeah. But I read the Strong's Concordance, and I have a master's degree in logic. And so I taught it. So I'm more the kind of person, I think that it's horrible that when King James put his stuff together, he was intellectually disabled. So when he decided to get all his king's horses and all his king's men together, not to put too fine a point on it, I think that they did a horrible job, and that the King James version and all the versions since then are based on the King James version. Just to very lay people say it. It's bullshit. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry, Steve. My channel, I do that all the time. I'm so sorry.
No, you can say bullshit here. It's fine.
Okay.
Fine. Knock yourself out.
Oh gosh, I use the F word all the time on my channels. I'm so sorry.
Me too.
I don't want to demonetize your
No, I don't give a fuck
line.
about that. Don't worry about it. I really don't care.
Okay. I'm so sorry when I go on lives, I forget. Okay, at any rate, so I'm just very different from most religious people, and most Christians in anywhere don't consider me a Christian at all. And it's none of their business what I am or who I am or what my belief system is. So, that's basically it. I believe in astrophysics, I believe in neuroscience, and I believe in evolution, So, and I believe in those things first and foremost. So it's very hard for me when people don't accept the commensurability of not religion, but spirituality and science. And I don't understand this whole triggering of hardcore atheists and the whole triggering of hardcore Christians. I'm not a bleeding heart liberal who believes that we should all just get along. I believe that we should have healthy debate that's based on logic. But at the same time, I don't get why we can't just,
Why do you too? But how much shit do I get for that? I mean, you again, not to give you anybody any information about you specifically, but I'll just say that you are aware of the things that go on my Facebook, and you see the shit that I get, and you have a master's degree in logic, and you just go, what the fuck? Why are these people bitching about Steve? What's the issue here? I mean, it's like me saying 1 + 1 = 2, and they go, Steve's a big bad poopy head. He must be wrong. What?
But you know what's funny, Steve, is that until a few days ago, I thought you were one of those people. I just came across you a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I
Because of
again, I don't know
Dehaney.
why somebody would think that way. It's like,
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, again, I might be but okay, all cards on the table. I understand that my last 3 blog posts that I put out were a little bit provocative. I understand that. It was to shake things up a bit, right? When I say, triggering atheists, I'm clearly talking about a very small group. I'm allowed to have a little bit of a little fun, especially off the shit that I get from these lack of belief atheist groups that, just by fiat say I'm wrong. So yes, was I having a little fun at their expense? Yes, I'm okay to do that. Okay, but I'm clearly somebody who's not anti-Christian. I'm not anti-religion. I'm not anti-theist. I'm none of that stuff. There are other people out there in the community like that. But again, I want to have those discussions.
Right. Now, I could call back another time because I can clearly see you're at the end of your stream, but I'd love to discuss one particular thing with you, and that's, do you believe that atheists, because I think that atheist is tied to determinism. Once you set yourself into atheism and you say, this is X, that's a form of determinism in my belief. That's, you're saying that.
Well, the tree feline just asked that question in the live chat. I don't know if you missed it. She asked, I was going to go back to it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was going to go back. Well, I haven't answered because I was going to go back to it, but I don't need it now. She basically was talking about, what do I think about determinism? Yes, to some degree. Yes, I'm a determinist, but I'm a compatibilist, is what I tend to. Now, I think there's problems with all the positions, but I'm fine with, I'm not a libertarian free will person. I'm not an indeterminist. So the only other compatible
I know.
position I
See,
got,
I am sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, you only limited so many options, right? So I don't accept libertarian free will. I think there's arguments against that. And if you're not an indeterminist, the only other option is determinacy. Okay, so I'm a determinacy, but in that you have compatibilism where you can actually have some ability to make decisions and change things, so it doesn't get you to fatalism. Because I'm not a fatalist. Would that suffice?
No. Yeah, okay. Sure. And I'm not a fatalist either. I've told you, okay, so your chat knows, by the way, I am a libertarian, but I'm a left-leaning libertarian. I'm a Shay. I'm a Shay. I'm the old-fashioned libertarian, the Shay revolutionary libertarian. I was raised on Shay. My dad had me reading Shay when I was 10 years old, so.
Well.
Yeah. Yeah, and matter of fact, Heather and you might want to get together later on, and because she does stuff on her channel, link in the video description. But yeah, I mean, so you don't think I'm too far based on that? If I say I'm just, I'm a determinist, but I tend to compatibilism because I don't know whether there's no other really options out. There's no good option to be had. I'll take what I can get by compatibilism. I just don't think it's great, but it's lesser of the
no. And I want to ask you a personal favor. I'm not kidding about this. Sure. You have got to stop asking permission from people with degrees in philosophy to be you, because you're very well educated in it, you're very well versed in it, and you're just as good at it.
Well, I do appreciate that. I'm never going to be on that kind of level, and I accept that. I do have a college background. Obviously, I did take 4 years of college. People don't seem to realize that I didn't finish my degree, but I did have a formal education of some sorts. But that doesn't put me on the par with any of these experts. The thing I use them for is just to validate what I'm saying, at least isn't complete bullshit. If there's errors and inaccuracies, we can fix those things, right? But I've seen people out there run the most ridiculous things that they say. I mean, go look at some of these people out there putting out their own arguments, which is fine, and I think people should. But they don't take the correction when the argument is so bad that it's fatal. Like, if I want to have a moral system that's predicated around something along the lines of what is immoral, if it's an involuntary imposition of will, such that if a rock hit me in the head, that rock has created has done a morally impermissible act, and the rock has been immoral now. What the hell are we even talking about morality for? At that point, your system is so incoherent and nonsensical. But that's what I have the experts for, to say, hey, look, how far off am I here, right?
For you to, excuse me, I'm sorry, for you to bring on experts, that's amazing. That's not what I'm referring to what I'm referring. I'm sorry, I can't stand that they made dangling prepositions obsolete. But that drives me crazy. No, that's amazing. That's the great part. That's not to what I'm referring. What made me cringe a bit was when you've had these people on and you've had to prove to them that you're great with the basic logic forms, bringing up modus tollens and modus ponens, just that you know them, not that you can use your arguments with them, but that you know them at all. That bothered me a little bit. And the fact that you are constantly bringing up all these papers that aren't relevant to your current argument, that you've simply read them. That's the thing. Don't do that, because you are great. You're amazing. You have all this knowledge. You're down. You've got it. So just don't do that part, because
so what do you mean? So
you don't have to.
Well, I mean, when I'm okay. So I just want to clarify what you're trying to say. I don't really do it when the people, like the experts, are on. Like when I had like Dr. Randall Rouser on or anything like that. I cite the papers that I read only for the people that say things like, "Oh, well, there's no papers on this," or that what's your evidence? That's why I
don't want you to take this as an attack, because it isn't. It's really to boost your confidence, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay. Because honestly,
so what do you think I should do?
My brain tanked in 2004 when I got MS and I started having seizures, and I thought, wow, he's taking me back to a place where I wish I were from years ago, and he's really getting me back to where I wish I were. And so this is great. You're really getting me back.
Thank you.
To thinking about I loved epistemology, and I remembered teaching all of this and where my brain would just go ping, 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 ping. And you're really getting me back there, and I love it. And thank you.
Well, thank you. And people had asked me before, somebody says, why you do this? Well, there you go. This is the reason right here. I mean,
great.
That people appreciate it, people like it, and people that, want to have these conversations. And I just love this stuff. I like these topics. I like talking about them. It's when people try to attribute it to something beyond that, like, Steve wants to have his ego stroke. Steve always wants to be told he's correct. No, it's nothing like that. I prefer the people that come in and they can run a very valid, counter argument. That's what I like. Like, look, just before you came in, we had Mike Ortiz in here. I have no defeater for what he says, right? I mean, it's just there's no wrong to be had there, kind of thing. I love that. It's a meeting of the minds. That's what a dialectic is supposed to be for, isn't it?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. My very first paper in philosophy was when I was a junior in high school on the dialectic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to know that I have some, like I said, you and other people that have looked at some of the things I've had, or at least know what I'm talking about. That doesn't think I'm like completely out to lunch. It means something to me. I mean, it does. I mean, I am a little insecure. I admit that on certain things. And
oh, come on.
What do you want? We're having an honesty moment here. We're having honesty, fifis.
I love it. I'd like to see your humility Go ahead.
Yeah, Heather, I'm so not a touchy-feely person, so give me this for a second. So no, we're good. We're over it. We're over our touchy-feelies.
No, I like
we're over
it.
the touchy
Good
feelies.
stuff.
Back
Yeah.
to the logic and the science. Okay, but anyways,
Trust
thank you
me.
for your
In
call.
fact, I
appreciate it.
just made an ad for one of my music videos where I said I'll throat check a bitch.
Well, go ahead and
Anyway.
and I did subscribe to your channel, so go ahead and
You're
let people
so
know
funny. Cool.
throw it out there so people can go find you.
It's the Dark Side Boomer Melissa, and I make 70s and 80s music critique videos. That's what I do. So,
Awesome.
All right, guys.
It's nice
right.
to meet you. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
oh, this is my real tiny channel, so it's only got like 60 subs. But my other channel was drama. Please don't go to that other channel.
Yeah,
because I killed
she's
it
well
because
aware
of
of the
the same
drama that's
reason
gone
you.
on. Yeah. Even though
Well,
you just
you have
kind of
it
found me,
leaked,
you
right?
were involved in a lot of the drama that was unrelated to me, but related to me, if that makes sense. Yeah. Whether you're aware of it. Yeah.
So please don't go there. I don't need that blowing
Ooh,
up again.
juicy. That's we're gonna have to know.
It's
Oh no,
it's
I don't even want to go there again, please. That's how I came across Steve.
I appreciate
All
it.
right, you guys
All
have
right.
a great day, and thank you so
You
much.
too.
Hey Steve, I tried to super chat you and something happened, but I just got tour guard, so it might
I
be
don't
that.
understand YouTube sometimes. It doesn't always work, but I appreciate it. But I mean, you can still become a member of the channel if you want. And I have a Patreon, and my Patreon is in the video description. That's my big thing. My Patreon is my main, and also the membership. But you know, it's
All right,
anything,
I'll get it
helps.
figured out.
Hey, look, I'm frugal. I'll take anything I get, man.
Okay, yeah, no, I know. I you do this for a
I literally
living.
wash
I don't.
plastic forks. I'm so cheap.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
But anyways.
All right, you guys have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Thank you so
You
much.
too.
I'm
Bye-bye.
not AT2. I'm not saying moist. Oh God damn.
Oh my God, why does everyone hate that word? I know I
Moist.
do
It's
that
just the
to piss
word
people off.
moist. I don't know.
Okay, Jamie Russell says you don't need to qualify your lack of credentials, Steve.
I know. I
And
get
that's
it. I know. I'm not the first person that have said this to me before. I just feel like I need you sometimes because, you know, I mean, I deal with a lot of people that I know a fuck ton, a lot more smarter than I will ever be.
I don't think that's. Here's the thing. Joe always says this too. So when people apply to the firm, it's not about how bright they are. It's more about finishing college or a bachelor's degree. It has to do with commitment. I mean, that's really what employers look at. So it doesn't. That it has nothing to do with intelligence.
I've done my share of hiring and stuff like that. All right, one last super chat, and then we'll get going here, guys. And we'll all say the word moist at the end. All right, so want to read the tops?
Sorry, what?
Oh, there's a super chat. Do you want to read it?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So for $5, Macabre says, this is the best call ever, not only because that woman is awesome, but because that shit that makes her cringe. Because that shit that makes her cringe makes me cringe too. Stop it, Steve.
Yeah. Okay, Macabre. Appreciate it, man. Yeah. Probably true. And again, I don't know if I don't know if you know Macabre, but he's been around 7-8 years probably too. I mean, we go back way back to the early days of the Greek community. So I've had people that have been around for a very long time, and then I have new people coming around. Well, hopefully we'll get new people as time progresses. My channel has never really blown up per se, and it certainly has never hit the algorithm. But I appreciate if you guys share these things, get more people involved. Say call in more. I'm trying to do new things. Still doing Caffeine Corner, obviously with Chesh. I have her coming in for other things as well. I have Heather for this particular episode. I might have somebody else for the next particular episode. I'm just trying to do, different things. Trying different things for 2021 and see where it goes, right? So anyways, Karma, plug your stuff and, take us out here.
Thanks for putting up with me. That's what I would say. Thank you guys for putting up with me. It's always educational. And I think that's what the whole goal should be. So people that come, whether they've been here for 7 or 8 years, doesn't matter. Anyways, thanks for including me and having me on. I appreciate it.
And where's your channel again for them so they can go find it? Which is in the video description?
Karma Valley. And that's it. Yeah. Karma Valley.
Karma Valley. Go check her out. All right, guys. I appreciate super chats and I appreciate the comments, and I will take some of them to the heart, and we'll see you next time.